since the UK departed the European Union, but now the stage seems clear for progress and a deal that could see greater cooperation between London and Paris in a bid to reduce the numbers of people taking to dinghies and making the hazardous journey across the waterway to the UK. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and President Emmanuel Macron discussed the issue on the sidelines of COP27 in Egypt this week, and Sir Peter Westmacott, a former UK ambassador to France, says they seem to have struck a positive working relationship.
There's obviously good atmospherics between Rishi Sunak and President Macron, so I'm sort of optimistic. The thing I would just say is that it does build on a lot of cooperation over the years. People have been a bit rude about French efforts and could they do more. But, we've had almost 1,000 British civil servants working on French territory, doing passport control, immigration control for 25 years. So for a long time, they've, if you like, helped us do our immigration controls on French territory before people who are not got legal right to come to the UK reach our shores. So this is building on that.
He says he hopes Britain can adopt a more mature approach generally to France and worries some politicians in the UK believe that adopting an anti-French tone can yield benefits with voters. The main news again, the fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance as counting continues in America's midterm elections. The British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. Russia says it's withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River. And Facebook's parent company Meta has announced it's laying off more than 11,000 employees.
I recently signed up for one of these self-defense classes and brought along a camera crew to watch. Take a good look at this class instructor.
Thank you very much.
Boy, was he smooth. He tried to butter us up with flowery compliments like, "Good work, nice try."
Yeah!
But don't worry, folks, I wasn't letting my guard down for 1 second. Maybe he wasn't planning to attack me at all, but he could potentially plan to attack me at some point, and that left only one option. Take him out first. This is him. This is the guy. My quarry approached, and when the moment was right, I struck. I knew he'd be able to counter my every move if I just did what he had taught me, so instead, I did exactly the opposite. I beat him with a baseball bat.
I am Shelby Cross! Do not ever attack me!
Now, folks, I acknowledge that this man may have never been a threat, but a potential threat is just as dangerous as a real one. I don't play games with my life, and neither should you, and that's it.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and as always, you're invited to take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever's important to you, unless what's important to you is yesterday's election, the life-changing,
most important election.
Yes, and obviously, if that's what you want to talk about, you can still call in and talk about it. I'm happy the election is over, and I don't have to hear any more people talking for a few days at least about how yesterday was the most important election of our lifetimes. I was trying to make it a point to remind people that not only is this election not important, your high school class president election was probably more impactful on your life than the actual election yesterday.
I don't know. I'm really happy Don Bolduc lost.
That was the the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate here in New Hampshire, who was caught lying
on video
and attacking someone who happens to be a host of our show. He attacked Joa from Thursday nights on Free Talk Live last week. It all got caught on video, and that guy lost, but I think he would have lost anyway.
I'm happy that Bolduc lost. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not happy that he lost because I don't think that's the right way to look at this. With that coming into it with that mentality leads to, well, I'm going to vote for Maggie Hassan to make sure that Bolduc loses. In general, I like that.
No one in this studio did that. I don't think.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But I like, in general, the idea of being against something like I'm an anarchist. That's against the state. I'm a Satanist. That's against the organized religion of the day. And instead of using more positive terms like voluntarism or humanist. So in general, I like that sort of divisive language to draw a point, but I'm worried when it comes to duopolies that it creates this fear of people, this fear within people that if they don't vote for the bad guy, then the even worse guy will win.
Yeah, but that's what's great in this race. There was also a third-party candidate for me to vote for.
There was.
Unfortunately, Jeremy Kauffman didn't get 4%, so we have to get signatures next time a Libertarian runs, but it's fine.
Yeah, Jeremy Kauffman, the Libertarian candidate, got only 2% of the votes in this recent election, which kind of just put him in line with your typical Libertarian vote getting.
I'm happy that he lost. I'm just happy that somebody who attacked my friend on video and was smiling about it and lying about it to get him arrested isn't like the next senator in my state. Even though I know that doesn't really mean much, it's just like, you can't do that.
I haven't even seen the video yet. Is it as bad as I would expect it to be? Where it's like, I mean,
It'll take you like a minute if you want to watch it during a break.
It's like preschoolers, a preschooler, Don Bolduc, pretending to get hit and then smiling when knowing he's lying to the teachers while the teachers are putting the other guy in timeout.
That's sort of why I guess that's sort of why I haven't watched it yet, because it's hard to believe that such a thing could really be done by a grown person that could behave so childishly and attempt to weaponize.
He's a psychopath.
I mean, clearly.
Yeah, right? And he gets away with this kind of stuff because he's a general, right? So there's a ton of people who just look the other way and pretend they didn't see what we've shown you in slow motion if you watch the video at freekeene.com. People watched this video and they still made excuses for this guy.
They're like, well, that's not what I saw.
But there's video.
There is.
You can't lie. Video doesn't lie.
Well, but people lie to themselves. People lie to themselves.
I mean, we're coming to a point in human history where video won't be as reliable because of deep fakes and all of that kind of stuff. But now,
no, this is real.
Video certainly doesn't lie. So I'm going to have to check that out.
We did get accused of everyone in the video being crisis actors.
That's right.
What?
Crisis actors on all sides.
You're a crisis actor. You're a crisis actor.
But the crisis actor was the one who was literally calling the cops and saying there was a crisis. In other words, Don Bolduc, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are conspiracy theorists everywhere, right? Anytime you have any event happening, there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork to say, oh, you're a crisis actor. I guess that's just the world we live in now. It's a false flag.
And Free Talk Live is a controlled opposition.
Yeah, I still don't know how anyone came to that conclusion.
It's because you're trans.
That was one of the reasons.
That's the clue, huh?
That's the clue.
You know, there was an interesting takeaway from last night, right? A lot of the low information people out there are going to be going off about how New Hampshire voted all Democrat. Because that's all they look at. They only look at the federal races. They see the blue color on the map on like the national news or whatever, and they freak out about it. And like Justin O'Donnell, for instance, who was on our show recently, was trying to argue with some of these people online. It's like, just don't even bother. These people are so low information. They don't matter. These people aren't people who are considering moving to New Hampshire. They're not libertarians who understand that this is the largest libertarian migration and that we don't care what happens at the federal level. So the interesting takeaway here was that despite Maggie Hassan and the other Democrats getting reelected at the federal level in New Hampshire voters also voted for a Republican for governor. So It's not like some total blue wave here in New Hampshire. In fact, when you actually look at the numbers, and I've got them pulled up here from the AP, we're at about 96, 97% votes counted. So it's pretty much a done deal at this point. You've got 96% of the votes counted in the Senate race and 97% in the governor race. We're going to call that about the same, right?
Obviously.
Maggie Hassan, the Democratic winner in the Senate race, received 322,000 and change votes. Chris Sununu, the Republican governor, received 343,000 votes. 20,000 more people voted for Chris Sununu than Maggie Hassan.
That would have been my guess because, I mean, even though I voted for Karlin Borysenko for governor, in a lot of the federal races, like I didn't even vote. Mm-hmm. Like if there wasn't a libertarian on the ballot or someone that I knew personally, I wasn't going to vote for them.
Yeah, me too.
So more than half of the ballot that I turned in was just blank.
Me too.
But Don Bolduc, remember, Chris Sununu, the Republican, had 343,000 votes. Don Bolduc, also a Republican, in the next race basically down on the ballot. So like most voters participated in both of these races. Like the further you go down the ballot, the fewer participants you get, right? Because people just say, I don't know who these people are, and they just don't vote in those races. Don Bolduc only got 269,000 votes. So on these pieces of paper, a certain number of them were turned in. Way more people voted for the Republican in the governor race, and way less people, like 100,000, not quite, 80,000 fewer people voted for the Republican in the Senate race. So that's
brutal for Bolduc. I mean,
it goes to show you that Bolduc was a terrible candidate, number one. He could not get the support of likely the independents, because remember, in New Hampshire, there's 3 voter categories. There's Republicans, there's Democrats, and then there's what they call undeclared voters. And so the undeclared are actually the plurality of the voters here in New Hampshire. They are bigger. There are more undeclareds than there are Republicans, and there are more undeclareds than there are Democrats. These people are the people who are likely saying, I'll vote for the Republican for governor, and I'll vote for the Democrat for, for the federal races. So,
I mean, that actually gives me hope for New Hampshire as a state. And obviously, I want New Hampshire to secede from the United States, but still, that people could be independent-minded enough to think, I'm not just going to vote for the Republican straight ticket. Yeah, that they
this
actually
is proof of that.
Right, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Even though a lot of these people do go in and they just vote straight tickets, enough of them don't that it influenced the outcome of the election. Because if they were just voting straight ticket, Bolduc would have won last night.
And also, according to the unofficial numbers, because there's still a few possible recounts that might happen in like the state house races, the Republicans still have control of the Senate, the state Senate here, and they still have control of the state house, but barely. The Democrats did get more people in. They did close the gap, so I think it's like 204 to like 197 or something like that. It's very, very close, or 196. So there's a very close distinction, which actually means that the Liberty reps, there's like a core group of a few dozen Liberty reps, are going to be the tie-breaking vote on everything in the next 2 years. So if the Republicans and the Democrats want their bill to pass, it has to get through the Liberty reps. So it's kind of more of an interesting situation now.
There aren't so many, if there are less Republicans altogether, a similar amount of Liberty reps, that means there's a lot less moderate, dead fish Republicans.
That's true as well. I don't know how many Liberty reps actually managed to make it through
the
election.
That's the big question right now.
I suspect the number went down a little bit, but
we'll see.
I do know that some of these state reps that I know managed to squeak through, and they won, and I'm happy about that. There is more coming up here, including some ballot measures you may not have heard about. 603-283-6160.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight is Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin is down, but it's still where you want to go to learn about cryptocurrency. You may not even understand what it means for Bitcoin to be down. Head on over there, Bitcoin.com. Click Getting Started, top of the page. Take just a few minutes out of your day to learn about this world-changing information. If people had done that, and if they had taken in the information and learned about Bitcoin and why it was important not to keep your cryptocurrency on an exchange, many fewer people would have lost money in this FTX nonsense that we're going to be talking about later. So it's critically important to not just go on Google and look where you can find Bitcoin and buy it through there and just leave it sitting there. It's critically important that you first learn about it. You can do that at Bitcoin.com. But if you do already know about it, go to news.bitcoin.com to stay up to date on everything in the world of cryptocurrency. That's news.bitcoin.com. We've been talking about the election results here, and it's been interesting trying to watch people come to terms with what happened in the elections yesterday. And as far as I can tell, what happened was pretty much nothing. It was just a continuation. It was just an election like any other. There was no red wave. There was no blue wave. It was just an election. But maybe I could be wrong. We have Jessica on the line from Missouri. Jessica, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, what's on your mind tonight?
I believe that the red wave didn't happen. I didn't figure it was. I figure the people that are on the radio that talk this right-wing stuff, get their marching orders directly from the Republican National Committee. And And the longer the time went on, they've been doing this for 6 straight months. You're talking about a red wave and a red tsunami and all this. And I knew it wasn't going to happen because the inflation might be bad, but it's not that bad. If your job doesn't quite pay your rent, you can go get another job and that pays better. So nobody's really feeling that much of a pinch. It's like, and on top of that, it's like, well, you know, the RNC, it kind of looks like they already knew they were going to lose. That's why they kept beating the war drums about, oh, go vote, go vote, go vote. And you know, we're going to have this red wave and all that. And I knew that was BS. But the thing is that I think the major reason that didn't happen was because of the senior voting bloc. When Biden got on the air and said, if the Republicans get power, they're going to come after your Social Security checks. And that alone could have, you know, shut down their little red wave.
That was the thing they were using against Don Bolduc in New Hampshire. So I think that could be a factor if lots of people all over the country were saying Republicans are going to take away your Medicare. But my thing is, I don't think it's that inflation isn't that bad. I think it's that they had a successful campaign of confusing people about what inflation is. Because yesterday when I was holding signs at the polls, I was talking mostly to Democrat old ladies. And this one Democrat old lady said to a Republican old man, oh, inflation, because he had a sign that said inflation. She's like, all inflation is greedy business owners,
which doesn't even make
gouging
sense.
The prices. And she fully believed that.
Yeah. I sort of understand where Jessica's coming from on this, though, because I've seen this at my other job. It's true that a lot of people can just go work for somewhere else and make more money right now, or they can get job raises at the jobs they're at. The average rate that, you know, starting employees are making at the place that I work at or any of the other places here in Keene, it's up several dollars from where it was a few years ago.
Yeah, so people are probably like, oh, that's so cool, I'm making $20 an hour, but their stuff is more expensive.
Yeah, but they're not happy about it because they realize that the corporations, that the businesses that hired them, they always had this money all along that they could have been paying to wages, and they were just being greedy and pocketing it and not giving it to employees. I'm not saying that's bad, but from the point of view of the employee who's been struggling for the last 10 years, having your company go, oh, actually, you know, it's really not that big deal. Here's another $6 per hour.
Oh my God.
I completely understand why these employees are like, no, you were just being greedy. That's what's been going on here. So I sort of understand that perspective. I don't think it's right, and I tend to disagree with it. I think abortion was the big issue that Republicans stupidly underestimated because they're stupid Republicans, and that's what they do. And they seem to not understand that, you know, undoing this thing that guaranteed women's rights for the last 30 years might piss some voters off.
And I think that's a big reason why Don Bolduc lost in New Hampshire.
Yep. That was what all his ads were about.
I think a lot of conservatives think that more people are against abortion than really are. Because even a lot of women who wouldn't personally get an abortion still believe that other women have the right to get one.
Because I know what the government is like, and I don't want abortion to be illegal, and then people who have miscarriages are going to jail, and people who want to have an abortion for whatever reason are getting killed by cops or whatever. I know how the government works when things become illegal. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't get an abortion necessarily, but I'll probably never have to. And that's what it's not about. Most people aren't like, I need abortion to be legal for all the abortions I want to have, like Nikki was saying.
Yeah, thank you so much for the call tonight, Jessica. I think that's one of the more common threads we'll find through the elections. We're looking at Governor Sununu, and how he got more votes than Maggie Hassan, who won the Democrat race for Senate, and he's clearly got more votes than Don Bolduc did. Bolduc, of course, is pro-life. Sununu, however, he falls on the pro-choice side of things, which is refreshing. I suspect what we would find here in New Hampshire, at least, is a lot of the candidates who won happened to be pro-choice candidates, and a lot of the ones who lost were not pro-choice candidates. I don't know that, but just looking at Sununu, Hassan, and Bolduc, that's one of the things we can extrapolate from that. Whether it's right or wrong, we don't know, because we don't know why voters did what they did. However, the pro-choice candidates here in New Hampshire, they won last night. The pro-life ones didn't. But there has been a red wave, as it turns out, just not quite how people intended. The red wave, as it turns out, has been an absolute bloodbath in cryptocurrency. As I understand, the value of Bitcoin has plummeted to about, I think it was $15,000 per, something along those lines. And that's down like $3,000 from yesterday. So that's like
it's like $5,000 from the day before.
Yeah, it's a 15-20% loss. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's severe. And a lot of people are blaming FTX for this. And I don't know anything about FTX other than a video that I watched earlier that was on Twitter where I'll try to find it and play it when we return.
Bankman?
Yes, Bankman is this guy's name. Imagine putting your money into a cryptocurrency exchange owned by someone with the literal
red
name
flag.
of Bankman, right? And I know, it's just a name, but but there's something to be said
It's
about
a little foreshadowing, you know.
Yeah, he has banks in his blood, supposedly. Like, that's a little...
Well, he behaved like a banker, and I don't know why they're going under. I've heard it's a liquidity crunch, which makes me think that they didn't actually have the cryptocurrency that they were supposed to have, that they told people they had, and now they're experiencing a run on their exchange, basically, of people trying to cash out, and they're like, we don't have this cryptocurrency to give people. That story's coming up, 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, "Good morning, Tom Frederick." For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing.
President Biden responding to questions at the White House after describing the midterm elections as an historic success for the Democrats, their best performance in government for decades. The fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance, though the president appeared to concede the Republicans will win a majority in the House of Representatives, and said he's beginning talks with Kevin McCarthy, the Republican who may become the next speaker. The race for the Senate is uncertain. Georgia is going to a runoff election on December the 6th. President Biden was asked if he's more likely now to run for a second term in office.
The fact that the Democratic Party outperformed anything anyone expected and did better than any off-year presidency since John Kennedy is one that gives everybody like, whew, sigh of relief. When I announce, my intention is that I run again. But I'm a great respecter of fate, and this is ultimately a family decision. I think everybody wants me to run, but we're going to have discussions about it.
In other news, British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman reports.
Sales for M&S were in fact up 8.8% in the 6 months to October, but profits were hit hard when the company pulled out of Russia, absorbed cost rises amid soaring inflation, and saw a drop in online food sales. In its results, the firm warned of a gathering storm next year and even more challenging market conditions in 2024. It pointed to a confluence of rising business costs and constrained household budgets. M&S chairman Archie Norman says he can't remember a time when macroeconomic factors have had a bigger impact on the business.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it is vital vital for journalists in Britain to be allowed to do their jobs without interference. He was speaking after a radio reporter and other journalists were arrested by police as they attempted to cover protests by environmental activists earlier this week. Russia is withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River in a bid to resolve supply problems. Ukrainian military commanders say they do not necessarily believe the announcement and are proceeding with caution lest the Russians are laying a military trap. Facebook's parent company Meta is laying off more than 11,000 people, 13% of its workforce. The company is citing worsening macroeconomic trends. Its stock has fallen more than 70% this year.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. As always, you're invited to join the discussion. You can talk about whatever is important to you, or you can talk about what we've been discussing, which is just previously the changes in the election, how things are going forward, our takeaways from the elections. But now we're talking about the cryptocurrency bloodbath. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And I suspect a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this cryptocurrency bloodbath because one of the articles that I saw tonight is about how Tom Brady was one of the people who seems to have had most of his cryptocurrency on the FTX exchange.
Oh. Wow.
Now, this was the third largest cryptocurrency exchange by volume, FTX was, and that's surprising to me because I mean, I've been out of the crypto space for nearly 2 years.
But I haven't, and I've never heard of it until this scandal.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it either.
Yeah, I hadn't either. I mean, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, I've heard of all of these companies. Even Gemini, who I can't stand, I've heard of them. But FTX, never heard of them. But Binance was looking into purchasing FTX because FTX is experiencing what they're calling a liquidity crunch. On Tuesday, Binance signed a letter of intent to purchase its troubled competitor FTX and what appeared to be a potential bailout of the latter amid its liquidity crunch. But just a bit over 24 hours later, that plan crumbled. Binance backed out after reviewing the company's structure and books. It said in a statement to the Wall Street Journal, "Our hope was to be able to support FTX customers to provide liquidity, but the issues are beyond our control or ability to help."
So does that cancel out their contract and everything, or is Binance now on the whole? Or wait, is it Binance that was going to?
It is Binance. Well, they never had a contract. They signed a letter of intent saying that they intended to purchase it, but they backed out of that. Apparently, they could still back out of it. They were still in the early enough stages where Binance was just taking a look at their books and seeing how things were. And within 24 hours, they're like, yeah, this is beyond our control. We can't do anything to help. This is just going to crash and burn, and we're going to watch it.
Not that I like Binance, but I'm happy that it didn't affect two cryptocurrency exchanges.
Yeah, well, Binance probably has enough money that they could have weathered the storm if push came to shove. But it sounds like purchasing FTX would basically just be a proposition of losing money. They may get FTX as customers. A lot of those are probably duplicate customers because I don't think there's very many people who just use one cryptocurrency exchange to acquire cryptocurrency. I suspect most people use a few different ones because you can't really trust any of them. And again, you shouldn't have your cryptocurrency on any of these exchanges in the first place. I understand you have to go there to buy them. But after that, you should immediately withdraw it into a wallet that's in your control.
And that's what I was going to say about Tom Brady. Wasn't he earning cryptocurrency for football or whatever he does?
I don't know the specifics of that. Some of these people, they just had accounts open in their names with FTX. So maybe it was that where his football, whatever team he played for, had an account for him at FTX, and they were just sending part of his salary to buy Bitcoin. I don't know. I don't know what Tom Brady's finances are like.
Because it's like he's earning crypto if it's the guy I'm thinking of that earns it for football. And he could just move it somewhere else. I don't know. It's not like he was buying it and he was in the middle of switching it to his Exodus wallet. But then FTX went under. It was like he was obviously keeping it there.
It's possible that, it just corresponded that way, but it's a matter of minimizing your losses, right? If Tom Brady's buying, 50 Bitcoin at a time, then obviously he could lose 50 Bitcoin. But if he's buying 50 Bitcoin at a time and he's not moving it, then after, 6 years of that, or however long he's been buying cryptocurrency there, then he would have 300 Bitcoin there, losing significantly more than just 50. I don't know what Tom Brady, I know he's a Bitcoin advocate and he promotes Bitcoin and he's got the laser eyes on his profile, but that's all I know about him. And he's some sort of football player, and I don't care beyond that. He does a good job of promoting cryptocurrency, or he did prior to this. I mean, it sounds like he should have done his due diligence and learned not to have his cryptocurrency on an exchange.
Maybe he was part of a false flag where this is all, orchestrated, and he was the big famous guy who gets to be like, look, I lost all my money. Oh, Bitcoin is too unstable.
I mean, it could be, but I don't think he would go as far to request part of his salary in cryptocurrency if he wasn't an actual advocate of it.
That would be the point. He loses all his money.
Well, he's not going to lose all of his money.
Or however much.
He's Tom Brady.
He's like a millionaire.
I didn't mean all his money. I just meant all his Bitcoin on that exchange.
Which would be stupid, but I mean, that's an issue on his part. And there's plenty of people out there who would point out that, hey, you were an idiot who left your cryptocurrency on an exchange. This is your own fault. You did this.
I don't think the majority of people would be able to come to that conclusion, though, because the majority of people probably don't know that. Even some people that are investing in buying cryptocurrency.
That's true. I would hope that he would be smarter than that, but I don't know anything about him. And again, I don't really care. Maybe you out there, and you can give us a call and fill us in on. I have an article here about Tom Brady, but I don't care. It reeks of celebrity nonsense. What's the word I'm looking for?
Tabloid?
Yes, it reeks of that sort of thing. And it's from dailymail.co.uk. It looks like tabloid nonsense. And I don't care in the first place.
Yeah.
It's Tom Brady. He's probably going to be just fine. And it's his own fault for keeping money on the exchange. And you're right. A lot of people probably don't know that's a bad idea. But that's all the more reason they should learn about cryptocurrency before they acquire it. Because this isn't like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or one of these other banking institutions where they have to keep your money and that's the only way you can use it. Otherwise, you can't, right? This is fundamentally different from all of those things.
Well, the thing Nikki's pointing out that I think is like the worst part, if it is kind of like a false flag or orchestrated in some way, is that people are just going to be like, oh, hopefully Tom Brady, I like Tom Brady. I hope that he gets to get some money back for that, like bailed out or, whatever. People are going to start being like, we need protection on cryptocurrency because they don't understand it's totally Tom Brady's fault, 100% Tom Brady's fault. They're going to be like, oh, we need protection on cryptocurrency. And it's like what LBRY.com just tweeted. They said if the SEC was trying to gain more power in crypto, what would they do? They'd go after the good guys like LBRY and make sure they lose and then call for protection for the bad guys that they let fail. Because, this guy was clearly Bankman, who owned FTC, was clearly a government guy, was going to the FCC or SEC and all these people to make sure he's in compliance, and he was giving money to all the Democrats, and he was totally political, so he could totally be in on it.
He was, but I don't think so. That story is true of most of the cryptocurrency world's major players. Most of them, like the CEO of Coinbase, I can't remember his name now, but most of them give a fair amount of money to political campaigns because they want to. I can't say I blame them. If I was a billionaire, I would also throw a few $1 million to Joe Biden to leave me alone. It's just the cost of doing business to these people. I don't think it necessarily indicates any corruption on their part to be doing that. I would do it, right?
He doesn't have to go and make sure he's all compliant with all these people.
Oh no, he's definitely a tool. There's no doubt about that. He absolutely was, but I don't think it was a false flag or any of that stuff. I think the U.S. government would be playing way too risky to be trying, because it's the U.S. government. They're so awful at everything they do. I don't believe for a minute they could orchestrate the rise of this cryptocurrency exchange that could collapse after making a series of monumentally bad decisions after its CEO has already been ripped apart, apparently by Eric Voorhees on the internet.
Well, if me, you, and Ian and Nikki all didn't know about FTX till today, sorry, I got confused because I said SFC. If we all didn't know about it till yesterday, I wouldn't even be shocked if it didn't exist until last night.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And I was kind of thinking that, Arya, when you were saying, this would be a lot for them to go through to orchestrate this whole thing just for a false flag. The entire thing could be fake. Like, we have no clue.
Australia could be fake.
I mean, you're not wrong, because I certainly haven't heard of FTX, but I've been out of the crypto space for 2 years, so maybe they just are only a year and a half old. I don't know. Have you heard of FTX before the last few days? Give us a call. I want to know, is this a real thing? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up, including Brittany Griner going to a labor camp in Russia. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Where did you get this right to tell me what I can do in my business? Where do you get the right?
I support private property.
No, you don't.
You're a liar. You don't understand
I'm a liar.
it. You're either a liar or you don't understand what private property is. One or the other.
Your house is private property.
Yeah, my business is too.
You open up a business
it
to the
is
public. Now it's
open
not
to
private.
the public.
As far as I'm concerned.
Well,
that's just an opinion.
you can redefine property if that's what you want to do. Where do you get the right to tell me what I can do in my business?
My lungs. So when they pass a law,
the government,
has lungs, sir.
The law. You just pointed it out.
I'm being silly.
The law.
You're being a Nazi.
You're absolutely right. The law is what gives you the right. The law is a bunch of words written on paper by liars and thieves, and you're willing to use that force that they have to reach your own ends. When you're willing to do that, then anybody can do anything to you.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, Hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait
now.
Wait a minute.
Whoa!
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki. And I want to tell you about Bullion Max. Go to bullionmax.com/FTL. There you can buy gold backs. It's probably the easiest way to acquire gold backs. It's not necessarily the cheapest, but you can definitely get them there, and it's the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you got to wire money to UPMax, or UPMA is the website, and it's sort of a pain. You can also still get the silver starter kit, and I got one of these. I highly recommend it at employee pricing. I've heard they're losing money on this deal, but it's 5 ounces of silver, 5 beautiful, breathtaking pieces of silver, 5 total ounces of silver is what it comes out to. And you get it at employee pricing by going to bullionmax.com/FTL. That's bullionmax.com/FTL. You can also, as I said, get gold backs there. You can also enter a giveaway with the chance to win this absolutely breathtakingly beautiful silverback dragon piece that I want one so bad. Well, here's to all of us winning, right? I should stop promoting it because
even if just like one of you guys wins, I just want to see it. I really want somebody I know to win one.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because I'm not going to like put it on display in my living room or anything like that. We're like, look at my beautiful piece, because that's just not the kind of person I am. But I would be happy just to hold one. Like, wow, that is cool. Here's your silverback.
And compare, yeah, I'm really excited. I hope that somebody I know gets one.
So that's bullionmax.com/FTL. Well, with all of us, I assume you've entered, Nikki?
I have not yet.
Okay, well, I've entered, and I went through all the hoops to get as many entries as I could. So I've got like 60, 70 entries at this point, and I want more.
Well, my money's on you.
Right?
I just entered once. I don't know how many entries it gave me, but I entered through Ian's link to give him more entries.
Well, that gave him 10 then. So awesome. Let's go to the phones. We have Alu Axelman calling from here in New Hampshire. Alu, you're on Free Talk Live. You write for the Liberty Block. That's the website I should promote. Alu, welcome to Free Talk Live. What's on your mind tonight?
Yes, thanks for having me. I want to talk about the elections yesterday from a unique analysis perspective, I would think. In New Hampshire, it was there was supposed to be a red wave in New Hampshire and everywhere. That did not happen. It was more Democrats than Republicans throughout the United States. But in New Hampshire, the GOP did pretty badly. They lost their majority in the House and Senate. It looks like the Senate will be even here in New Hampshire, and the House in New Hampshire will be probably even maybe Republicans with a tiny majority. But even though it was a bad day for the GOP, it was a really good day for libertarians, for free staters. It looks like around 45, 50, or 100 libertarians won election or re-election, and I'm looking right here. It says according to
100.
According to who?
147. So according to well, let me look at
this isn't free staters state reps that we have. Like, this is all offices throughout the state of New Hampshire, I'm assuming.
So sorry, I was looking at those running for election. There were 160 endorsed by the NHLA running for election.
Got it.
And the amount who won, the NHLA didn't put out yet, but AFP put out, I think, 43 wins. So AFP, Americans for Prosperity, endorses pretty much libertarians. A lot of them are free staters. A lot of them are, some are voluntarists, some are libertarians. And they're based mostly on economic freedom, criminal justice freedom, drug freedom, gun rights. So AFP is really, really good. And 43 of their endorsed candidates won, mostly state reps, a few state senators, I believe, and an executive counselor. So that's really, really good. A lot of them are free staters who were reelected, and a lot of first-time free staters. It looks like 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, but at least 2 or 3 that I've seen so far, first-time state reps, free staters, meaning the number now is up to like 50.
That's great. Well, yeah, but some lost. I mean, some returning free staters lost, like Mike Sylvia. He's no longer. Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, he still is no longer a state rep. So we lost a free stater state rep when we lost Mike Sylvia. So
but hopefully we won enough good ones to make up for it, because it's like,
I would be stunned if the number of free stater state reps or libertarian state reps increased in this election.
We'll have to see if there's an increase or loss, but there are some new ones who are good, and also really good news, which again was surprising because the GOP lost, but it wasn't because they were too pro-liberty conservative. I think the abortion issue was the big issue, and they pushed back against the most pro-life conservatives. But I think what's interesting is the secessionists, everyone who voted for independence, who was on the general election ballot, won the election. It looks like Len Bailey, Josh O'Kella, Matt Santonastaso, Who else was there? A few others.
And Matt Centeno
Sasso,
he's certainly worth mentioning because he wasn't just someone who voted for secession. He was one of the
He was the main sponsor.
Well, Mike Sylvia was the main sponsor.
Yeah, you're right.
And he did ultimately lose, but he lost his primary, and that was for
and that was all because of
reasons.
gun stock. Yeah.
Yeah. But Matt Centeno Sasso, he was certainly front and center. Whenever the media was interviewing someone about New Hampshire independence, it seemed to always be him.
He even went up at when that Karen tried to get them all in trouble at the ballot place.
That's right. Where he was like, I'm not even going to bother to show up, right? But
then he did go, and he gave a little speech about why he thinks secession shouldn't get people, whatever. He gave a principled little speech and everything. He never, was shy about it. He didn't vote and then go like, oh, well, it's just that I want people to vote. He was like very principled. That's why I spend my time with standing at the polls for him. I felt like he was the most important liberty rep. Well,
yeah, and again,
he's absolutely
them the election at all. It seems like gun stock cost a few, unfortunately, in Belknap County, but the secession thing really did not cost the Liberty reps the election. A few other decent reps lost the election. They didn't support Liberty. I know Bonnie's favorite rep in the universe from Merrimack did not win re-election. And I think she was the only one in Merrimack Republican who did not win re-election.
Melissa Blasek.
Okay, I was like, we have no idea who the hell you're talking about.
I did. It was Melissa Blasek. But I'm not happy she lost. I would have rather her won. It's not like I hate her or something. She was just rude to me about secession. And the thing is, she was telling me secession is political suicide. So, nope.
Is it though?
It's not.
Apparently
Actually, being
not.
against abortion is.
Well, that's not being against abortion should be political suicide. I mean, wanting to deny people rights, whether you agree with what they want to use those rights for or not, wanting to deny people their rights to say what does and doesn't happen to their body should be political suicide.
And it is, but not secession.
Yeah, so as far as secession and yesterday was a mixed bag, but we saw a lot more polarization. Florida is more and more red. DeSantis won by like 16 or 20 points. A lot of places became more red or more blue, more divided. And everyone is super upset and caring so much about what happened in D.C. If you don't want to have to worry every 2 years about who controls D.C. because they're going to control our lives, and you want more, close to home decision making, then you support independence.
You're probably more in touch with these people than I am. Who is upset? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just not in touch with them. Who was upset about the turnout? I mean, the results of yesterday's election, and why are they upset? Because as I was saying at the very beginning of the show, as far as I can tell, it was just a mundane, ordinary election where nothing of substance really changed in any direction. The needle didn't move. It was just an election.
Yeah, it didn't move much, but Republicans were, and everyone, pollsters, Republican, Democrat, everyone was expecting a tremendous red wave of Republicans taking the U.S. House and U.S. Senate with big majorities, and that did not happen. It looks like they'll both be extremely close to even, just like in the New Hampshire House.
Okay.
They'll both be totally tied, and everyone was expecting a tremendous red wave. That's why it was a big, big disappointment. It was not what anyone expected, and this was like the most wrong pollsters have ever been since maybe 2016 Trump being elected. But the pollsters everyone was wrong, and I was wrong too. We all thought it would be a huge red wave, and it was not, meaning we overestimated how much people care about inflation and the bad economy, and we underestimated how much people care about abortion.
I think the unfortunate part about inflation, and I'm not going to harp on it because I already explained this to another caller, is just that the left had a good campaign of misinformation about what inflation is.
Yes, and they said it's a global issue, and that was their pushback, and Republicans didn't have a rebuttal. They said, well, it's not Biden, it's a global issue, because other countries also have crappy Federal Reserve, central banks that are inflating the currency, but it's a global problem. It's not Biden's fault.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that aspect of it. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Alu. That's a really good takeaway. I like what you said about this, is that what we learned last night from the election was that people don't care as much about inflation as we thought, and people cared more about abortion than we thought. I don't know that this is necessary. I would have figured the two issues were about the same, and maybe I think I would have agreed that inflation was probably more important to people than abortion.
No, I'm actually not surprised by that. I think most people aren't really getting what's going on, or they're not paying attention enough. Abortion is easier for them to understand. It's more of a black and white issue, whereas the average person doesn't even really truly understand what inflation is. I'm not surprised that they aren't voting. It's very obvious to me, because you go to the grocery store, you get an oil change, you fill up gas, anything, your money does not go as far. It's as simple as that. But people aren't voting. Their voting isn't reflecting that truth.
But the thing is, who were they supposed to vote for to make inflation go away? There's no person to vote for to make inflation go away, but there were specifically people to vote for that were going to make abortion legal or illegal. That's what they were saying, you know.
All really good points. Libertarians could have worked toward ending inflation, but I don't know that libertarians really put that issue front and center. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing.
President Biden responding to questions at the White House after describing the midterm elections as an historic success for the Democrats, their best performance in government for decades. The fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance, though the president appeared to concede the Republicans will win a majority in the House of Representatives, and said he's beginning talks with Kevin McCarthy, the Republican who may become the next speaker. The race for the Senate is uncertain. Georgia is going to a runoff election on December the 6th. President Biden was asked if he's more likely now to run for a second term in office.
The fact that the Democratic Party outperformed anything anyone expected and did better than any off-year presidency since John Kennedy is one that gives everybody like, whew, sigh of relief. When I announce, my intention is that I run again, but I'm a great respecter of fate, and this is ultimately a family decision. I think everybody wants me to run, but we're going to have discussions about it.
In other news, British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman reports.
Sales for M&S were in fact up 8.8% in the 6 months to October, but profits were hit hard when the company pulled out of Russia, absorbed cost rises amid soaring inflation, and saw a drop in online food sales. In its results, the firm warned of a gathering storm next year and even more challenging market conditions in 2024. It pointed to a confluence of rising business costs and constrained household budgets. M&S chairman Archie Norman says he can't remember a time when macroeconomic factors have had a bigger impact on the business.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it is vital for journalists in Britain to be allowed to do their jobs without interference. He was speaking after a radio reporter and other journalists were arrested by police as they attempted to cover protests by environmental activists earlier this week. Russia is withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River in a bid to resolve supply problems. Ukrainian military commanders say they do not necessarily believe the announcement and are proceeding with caution lest the Russians are laying a military trap. Facebook's parent company Meta is laying off more than 11,000 people, 13% of its workforce. The company is citing worsening macroeconomic trends. Its stock has fallen more than 70% this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more depth today at news that a deal is close between the UK and France over migration flows across the English Channel. It's been a bone of contention ever since the UK departed the European Union, but now the stage seems clear for progress and a deal that could see greater cooperation between London and Paris in a bid to reduce the numbers of people taking to dinghies and making the hazardous journey across the waterway to the UK. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and President Emmanuel Macron discussed the issue on the sidelines of COP27 in Egypt this week, and Sir Peter Westmacott, a former UK ambassador to France, says they seem to have struck a positive working relationship.
There's obviously good atmospherics between Rishi Sunak and President Macron, so I'm sort of optimistic. The thing I would just say is that it does build on a lot of cooperation over the years. People have been a bit rude about French efforts and could they do more. But, you know, we've had almost 1,000 British civil servants working on French territory, doing passport control, immigration control for 25 years. So for a long time, they've, if you like, helped us do our immigration controls on French territory before people who are not got legal right to come to the UK reach our shores. So this is building on that.
He says he hopes Britain can adopt a more mature approach generally to France and worries some politicians in the UK believe that adopting an anti-French tone can yield benefits with voters. The main news again, the fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance as counting continues in America's midterm elections. The British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. Russia says it's withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River. And Facebook's parent company Meta has announced it's laying off more than 11,000 employees.
Well, it's the end of an era and the beginning of a new one.
Today, Pennington's black part of town moved across the river to North Pennington. The Thompson family sold their home on the east side and moved to the old Kirkland Place at 17 Mansfield Place, establishing the all-new black neighborhood. Northside residents are looking forward to the infusion of fun and funk that the new black part of town is sure to bring to their area. Mayor Mitzi Kranowitz presided over the dedication of the new black neighborhood, unveiling a sign designating it a landmark district.
It's lovely, everyone. Pennington's diversity is its strength, whether it's Little Harlem or the so-called Gayborhood, where Paul and his partner Bryant have that cottage.
Sheriff Stevens today announced that the heavy round-the-clock patrols that helped make the old Thompson house one of the safest neighborhoods in town will move with them.
This has nothing to do with the black part of town moving here. We just want to make sure that everyone here has a comfortable place to live.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And coming up, good news for people. Surprisingly good news. And I'm a bit disappointed in the world that this news is not front and center. And I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to just lure you into enticing news that's coming up. I mean it. This is one of the best things that I've heard of possibly in my lifetime.
Wow.
As a result of any election whatsoever. And it's just some throwaway article at MSN.com. I mean, and it should be so much bigger than that. We're going to talk about that. But first, we have Major Payne on the line from Michigan. Major, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
You guys remember during the last election there was all this scuttlebutt about the Dominion voting machines and whether or not they were legit and such?
I do because not for the last election, but I'm originally from Mississippi, obviously, and they have the voting machines there. And there's no paper trail whatsoever of your vote. It's 100% digital. There's no way to get a paper ballot. You have no way of knowing that the machine is recording your ballot correctly or not. And some of these, I think the Dominion ones at least print out a receipt saying, hey, this is what you voted for. The ones they had in Mississippi didn't even do that. It was just 100% digital, no accountability, no paper trail, no record.
And they're closed source.
Yeah, for all I knew, it just took my vote and immediately gave it to Donald Trump or whoever.
Yeah, it could have.
Well, the machines we had here in Michigan, supposedly, I don't know if we had 100% Dominion voting machines or if it was a mixture of this, that, and the other thing. But after I was apprised of this Dominion problem, this time when I went in and voted, we had exactly the same form to fill out, little dots to scribble in and whatnot. You could vote a straight ticket one way or the other. And I figured that was the easiest way to get chunked, was just to vote straight one party. Right?
I can't believe some states even do that. New Hampshire thought about bringing that back where, you have the ballot question at the beginning of your ballot that says you can vote for all of the Republicans by checking this box and all the Democrats by checking this box. That way you don't have to actually go through and even know anything about the candidates. You're just literally voting for the party at that point.
Saves you like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I can't believe that such a thing even exists.
Well,
that
it really
anyone
shouldn't,
doesn't.
because
No.
you're voting for a person, not a party. But for some reason, no one can understand that.
And you're like admitting by signing that you don't even know who you're voting for.
And if there's anything I've successfully done in my life, it showed how bad of an idea it is to vote straight party ticket.
One thing that really raised my eyebrows is I remember this Dominion thing. And I didn't take a good look at this machine a couple of years ago because I hadn't been apprised of the situation. But this time when I'm walking up to it, I'm eyeing it real good, and it's the same damn machine I used last year, but now it's painted flat black, and all the tags are painted over. So I didn't have a clue, and that really, that rubbed my fur the wrong way.
I understand, man. I'm of the opinion that all elections are fraudulent, and I don't care if they're using the Dominion voting machines or if they're pretending, because the way it works in New Hampshire, you get a paper ballot, and then it goes into this machine, and it just disappears, right? That's not any better. I don't have any way of knowing that machine actually read my vote correctly or that it cared to in the first place. Maybe it just saw that I put down Kara Borysenko from governor, and it was like, well, let's just make this a Sununu. I don't have any way of knowing. And I will never have any way of knowing, short of, and even if we removed all that and we had just individuals out there hand counting all of these votes, I still can't trust all of those people.
Yeah, of course not. And there's so much room for error in that system because it's just natural human error, even if it's not on purpose. But I watched a video yesterday of one of the guys that was going through the ballots, and he's looking around like back and forth, very, very guilty looking, doing some of the body mannerisms that people do when they're lying or being dishonest, and he's flipping them and drawing on it, just being super sketchy.
Yeah.
So you have stuff like that going on.
You have that, but then as you pointed out, you also have just legitimate, honest human error. And we can, again, prove that this happened in my election, where you can look at the official voting registry and see that 7,710 votes were recorded for Eli Rivera from the town of Westmoreland here in New Hampshire. Westmoreland has a population of about 1,600. So roughly 4 times the population of Westmoreland came out to vote for Eli Rivera. And obviously, this is just some simple human error. Some human accidentally added a 0, or they added an extra 7 at the beginning. I don't know which of these things happened, but either way, that number that was 10 times too high got sent to the actual state house, the Secretary of State. and it got recorded in the actual book that they record these elections in. It's fraudulent. It's wrong. It's incorrect.
It's impossible.
Yes.
Yeah, literally impossible.
I will say I wrote in Aria DeMezzo for sheriff since I couldn't vote for you for state rep.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I think Ian did that as well. A couple of my friends did in other elections too. I wish there was some way of knowing how many people actually did that, because I mean,
you can go to the town hall and ask them for all write-ins, and they'll show you.
Yeah, I'm talking about like friends in Colorado, though. I would have to do that in every town, in every county, in every state. It's like, I don't care that much.
Yeah.
But like, I wish instead of just writing miscellaneous candidates, they would actually. The Secretary of State should actually put in the work to
Mickey Mouse 12, Aria DeMezzo 2.
Yeah, they should actually do that, but they don't, because they don't have to. They don't even verify that the numbers they get make sense.
Yeah, clearly.
So I said, why would I have any faith in this institution that made me its sheriff candidate? Okay, that's your first big problem.
As a Republican, at least.
As a Republican, yes. Well, as anything, right? Maybe as a libertarian
Aria's
candidate.
Clearly a Republican, right?
I could understand a system like if the Libertarian Party made me their sheriff candidate, I could at least understand that, right? But not for the other two parties. And then it went on to give 7,000 extra votes to my opponent, which changed the numbers from like me getting 15 or 25% to me getting like 18%. Like, it was a substantial amount of the total number of votes here. It was like 7 to 10% of the total number of votes that were cast in the entire election. Didn't even exist. And this is just one town, in one county, in one state, in one race. You multiply this by all of the races, by all of the counties, by all of the states, and all of the townships, and all of the humans who could be making that simple little mistake of accidentally hitting a 9 instead of a 6. And suddenly they're sending 3 too many votes, or 30, or 300, or even 3,000, and no one's there on the other end to go, yeah, that number looks about right. And even if they do, like...
They're government workers. It's not like a government worker is going to be like, wait, I know how much the population of Westmoreland. They just won't know. They'll just type in the number that is in front of them and then go on with their lives. And that's probably what happened.
Well, if the number was only wrong about like 3 people, they wouldn't know in the first place.
Yeah. When most of the people that are working these jobs, they have their own opinions, they have their own candidates, and things are getting very polarized these days, way more than, it was always very polarized between the left and the right, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. People are getting more divided. So if somebody's a diehard conservative, they're more likely to make mistakes that are going to favor their party.
That's exactly what happened with the Bible. All the clerics or whatever that had to write down, the scribes, they would literally look at the Bible and rewrite it because there weren't printing machines. Whenever they were part of a faction that believed this certain part or thing, they would just change a thing to make it more like what they believed. Like,
yeah,
that happened a million times. There's so much evidence for that.
And, that's the intentional stuff. We haven't even gotten into that. All of that stuff exists, too. I can't imagine being one of these people who is even sort of aware of all of these possibilities. It manages to still have faith in the election system of the United States. It's completely fraudulent from the bottom to the very top. There's no accountability. There's no way of knowing that any of the votes recorded were actually recorded or reported correctly, and there's no one at the other end to make sure those numbers are correct and tallied correctly. If every state is making an error by even 1%, it could affect the outcome of the entire election. It's way too much human error, and you can't eliminate that. The whole thing is fraudulent, and I don't know why anyone continues to support it. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you are invited to take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. And I want to say thank you to Ukraine 79. That's tonight's amplifier. That means that Ukraine 79 is a member of the AMPS program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. So if you value Free Talk Live, if you value the ideas of liberty, being on close to 200 radio stations, you may consider joining the AMPS program. That's amps.freetalklive.com. It only takes $5 per month. That's our Patreon, and it does come with a number of cool little features, like you get a full version of the podcast. You also get it a day earlier than other people. So check it out. But really, if you sign up for it, it should be because you value the ideas of liberty, not because you're trying to get anything out of it, other than, us doing our thing here at Free Talk Live. So check it out. That's amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Let's keep going with the phones. We have Chuck on the line from Washington listening on K-Talks. Chuck, you're on Free Talk Live.
Right. So I'm a listener on K-Talks, but I want to comment on Portland, Oregon politics at that, so we're all on the same page here.
Okay.
One of the more interesting observations that I made is that Portland voters went ahead and they actually decided to expand their form of government from like 4 people to 12 to include a mayor, and then they wanted a city manager, what blew me away. And I'm thinking...
Portland had no mayor or city manager?
No, they have a mayor form of government, and they have a commission form of government, if that makes any sense.
None of this makes sense.
Yeah, say again?
None of this makes sense.
Well,
like, I have no idea what the different forms of city governments really are. I know that we have a mayor here in Keene.
It's a shakedown racket, I mean, for starters. But
okay.
We need something to go off on, I guess. So you got your city manager form of government, you got your strong mayor, you got your city council mayor, you got your commissioner form of government, you got various forms of government. And the city of Portland has decided that in order to solve their problems, they're going to get this new form of government where they're expanding, I guess, the voter districts, and they're adding a city manager. What really just blows my mind, if anybody knows anything about city government, I mean, you're talking about a city manager that has, let's talk about Bullhead City, Arizona, for starters, but I don't want to get into that.
Now, what is your issue with having the city manager, though?
I think the city manager is a demonstration for a city that doesn't know what they're doing. And so what the city is trying to shift to right now is they're looking for a somebody to go to, oh, geez, we don't really know what we're doing here. We got tents all up and down the city, and it really is like that. When you get off the Amtrak or anything like that, it ain't no joke. It's like a tent city along the, but they're doing things to do that, but they got everybody pissed off enough where they have decided that their form of government is incompetent, that they're looking for something else. We need to modify our government.
I don't come to that conclusion at all from them getting a city manager. It sounds like they're like, okay, more government.
That's maybe more government's the answer, right? I mean,
more government's never the answer. Yeah, it's never the answer. But a city manager, that's a specific job that that the mayor doesn't do, right? I mean, that's... Well,
some cities they do that in Portland. They have like different responsibilities for the different commissioners over different districts. For example, there's one city commissioner that has responsibility over a certain amount of departments.
I mean, sure. I mean, if that's what Portland wants to do, what do I care? This is being statists, right? I think we lost him.
That's what it seems like to me. It's status being the status.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you so much for the call tonight. Yeah, I don't either.
I thought it was going to be...
I don't think they should have a mayor. I don't think they should have a manager. I don't think...
Yeah, Portland can
fire them all.
They can elect a king for all I care. It's Portland. It is on the literal other side of the planet, other side of the continent for me, rather.
I thought it was going to be something way more interesting because he was like, listen, I'm in a whole other state, the bottom of the other state, but I'm really interested in what's happening in Portland, Oregon. Let me tell you, they hired a city manager.
You make a really good point. I don't understand what the issue with city managers is. It seems like if you're going to have a bureaucratic type of government, then you're going to want a city manager whose job it is to like manage that. But I don't know. I don't know what a city manager does, and I don't really care because
I think Obama was that in Chicago before he was president.
Oh, I didn't know.
He was a city planner. I don't know what the difference is.
That's probably the same thing.
It's probably, yeah.
Community planner. Maybe
just,
that's it.
You know, status being status. So it's not anything terribly interesting. I don't know why our caller there was so interested in it, but it wasn't interesting to me.
Way more interesting things happened that Aria was going to bring up.
They are, absolutely. Like slavery has been outlawed in some, but not all states where it was on the ballot. So evidently one state that we're going to talk about did not outlaw slavery, but the big news...
Wait, did most people think that slavery was already illegal in America?
The
I mean,
average
I thought
American
so.
thinks that slavery is illegal, but it's not.
I mean, you can still go to jail and become a slave that way with their
Right.
work programs and whatnot.
Because slavery is not illegal, it's totally legal, but it has to be considered punishment for a crime.
Yep.
And it's no surprise that immediately after that, we started seeing more laws that disproportionately target people who are black and Hispanic and other minorities so that, they could continue the institution of slavery. But now, we're just punishing them for a crime. And we just so happen to make this thing illegal that we knew was going to cause police to disproportionately target them. That we're totally not just trying to keep the institution of slavery alive here. That's just how things had to be. But most people do think that slavery is illegal in the United States, and they don't realize that, it's completely legal. It just has to be considered punishment for a crime. And the things that are considered crimes in the United States is ever growing. However, voters in 3 states approved ballot measures to amend their state constitutions to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime, while those in a 4th state rejected the move. So 3 states voted to remove the allowance of slavery as punishment for a crime from their constitutions, to outright just make slavery illegal. And that, to me, is a positive development that I didn't see coming.
I had no idea they were even going to vote on this.
I did not either. This is the first I've heard about it. Surprisingly, 2 of the 3 states that did this are southern states. Alabama and Tennessee were 2 of them. The third was...
2 of the best southern states.
They're all trash, right? I mean, it's the
Tennessee
South.
is really not trash.
Agree to disagree.
It has way better... Oh, well, Memphis is.
Yes. Well, yes.
I forgot Memphis is Tennessee.
The third state was Vermont, surprisingly enough.
Oh, okay.
In Oregon, however, we were just talking about Portland, Oregon, but in Oregon, votes in favor of a similar anti-slavery ballot initiative were in the lead, but the outcome remained too early to call. So we don't know what's happening in Oregon in regard to slavery.
I can't imagine voting, nah, we'll just keep slavery.
Well, Louisiana voted for exactly that. There's more on this story coming up. 603-283-6160. Are you in one of these states that just outlawed slavery? I want to hear about it. What were the advertisements like? What were the commercials like that you were hearing? There's more coming up. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing.
President Biden responding to questions at the White House after describing the midterm elections as an historic success for the Democrats, their best performance in government for decades. The fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance, though the president appeared to concede the Republicans will win a majority in the House of Representatives, and said he's beginning talks with Kevin McCarthy, the Republican who may become the next speaker. The race for the Senate is uncertain. Georgia is going to a runoff election on December the 6th. President Biden was asked if he's more likely now to run for a second term in office.
The fact that the Democratic Party outperformed anything anyone expected and did better than any off-year presidency since John Kennedy is one that gives everybody like, whew, sigh of relief. When I announce, my intention is that I run again. But I'm a great respecter of fate, and This is ultimately a family decision. I think everybody wants me to run, but we're going to have discussions about it.
In other news, British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman reports.
Sales for M&S were in fact up 8.8% in the 6 months to October, but profits were hit hard when the company pulled out of Russia, absorbed cost rises amid soaring inflation, and saw a drop in online food sales. In its results, the firm warned of a gathering storm next year and even more challenging market conditions in 2024. It pointed to a confluence of rising business costs and constrained household budgets. M&S chairman Archie Norman says he can't remember a time when macroeconomic factors have had a bigger impact on the business.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it is vital for journalists in Britain to be allowed to do their jobs without interference. He was speaking after a radio reporter and other journalists were arrested by police as they attempted to cover protests by environmental activists earlier this week. Russia is withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River in a bid to resolve supply problems. Ukrainian military commanders say they do not necessarily believe the announcement and are proceeding with caution lest the Russians are laying a military trap. Facebook's parent company Meta is laying off more than 11,000 people, 13% of its workforce. The company is citing worsening macroeconomic trends. Its stock has fallen more than 70% this year.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And we're talking about the surprising news that none of us had heard about prior to pretty much tonight, where Alabama, Tennessee, and Vermont voted in a ballot initiative to outlaw slavery even as punishment for a crime. Whereas in the United States, as things currently are, slavery is totally allowed as punishment for a crime. In Louisiana, which is obviously a former slave-holding state, I don't know why the article felt the need to point that out, but obviously it was, voters rejected a ballot question which was known as Amendment 7, that asked whether they supported a constitutional amendment to prohibit the use of involuntary servitude in the criminal justice system, which means that the state of Louisiana knowingly, willfully, and deliberately voted to keep slavery in the state of Louisiana.
And I think it has less to do with it being an ex-slave state and more to do with it being a current police state.
Yeah, it's excellent point. The initiatives won't force immediate changes on the state's prisons, but they may invite legal challenges over the practice of coercing prisoners to work under the threat of sanctions or loss of privileges if they refuse, which I think is more or less how it is now, where they can't actually force you to work. They just take away sanctions or privileges if you refuse. But I mean, realistically, that was the case during, slavery prior to the Civil War as well, where they literally couldn't force you to work. They could just punish you until you were like, fine, I will do some work. So that's not really fundamentally different. The types of punishment has changed. Rather than, whipping you, they're taking away your bed mat or whatever. But they're still punishing you for refusing to work. The results were celebrated among anti-slavery advocates, and I'm celebrating. I'm happy to hear it. I wish we had had something similar here in New Hampshire, but of course we didn't. We did have two constitutional questions on the ballot here. I don't remember what either. I remember one of them was, do you want a constitutional convention? Of course, I voted yes for that. Yes, let's do this. Let's have one.
And it lost. It was so stupid.
It loses every time, right? I mean,
the Democrats I was polling with, they were saying to each other, hey, don't forget, vote no on the constitutional convention. I was like, why?
Because they're scared of what people would do if they actually had a chance to change the fundamental nature of the New Hampshire government.
I want to change the one, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, that says, in a society we give up some natural rights to live in a society.
Where does
that
this
doesn't make any sense.
It's in the Constitution of New Hampshire, and it's my least favorite one. And there's a Free Stater. I won't out him because it's so embarrassing, but there's a Free Stater on Twitter that defended that part of the Constitution when I was saying it needs to go.
I mean, that's an understandable claim if you operate on the assumption that a society is something that one voluntarily and deliberately joins, not something that you can be forced to join just by being in a given geographical area,
right?
Which is what most people mean when they mean society. Oh, you're in society, you have to agree to give up certain rights. No, a society is something like the Shire Society that I voluntarily joined. And what you have here is a criminal gang that is trying to intimidate and oppress me.
And you don't have to give up some rights to join a society. You gave up no rights by joining the Shire Society, and people just fundamentally don't understand what rights are. Like, somebody literally said to me, oh, well, I give up my right to drive my monster truck over your lawn, etc. That's not a right. That was never a right. That's a wrong. It's not, you don't have the right to drive your monster truck over somebody's lawn. You never had that right. It's not like, oh, it's either chaos or you give up some of your rights. It's chaos when people get to make up fake laws, fake rules that they get to tell other people how to live their lives.
Yeah, that's where things get screwed up. But you're right, a lot of people don't understand what rights are. They think that, might is right and that they can drive their monster truck on your lawn because what are you going to do to stop them, right?
Shoot them.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they would make the argument that they will bring a bigger gun or whatever. That's what they always say. And ultimately, they're just making an appeal to authority, appeal to force, basically, where no matter what you have, they're going to find a way to imagine up some bigger, more powerful gun that you can't defend against. And therefore, we need
government.
Yes, that's pretty much what all of their arguments boil down to is I can imagine this scenario where I have a nuclear weapon and you don't, therefore we need government. And if that sounds like nonsense to you, please understand that that's the argument put forward by every statist that I've ever talked to on the subject. They just phrase it a little bit more coherently. Or they attempt to, but essentially what their argument boils down to is exactly that. So good on these three states. That's Vermont. I've already lost them again. Vermont, Alabama, and Tennessee voting to outlaw slavery. I wish that Russia had gotten that news, but of course, Russia is very different from the United States. Are they really very different? Because 47 out of 50 states still allow slavery. So I can't really say that Russia's really that different, but there's an update on Brittany Griner, who was arrested several months ago. Some WNBA thing, Women's National Basketball Association. She was flying to Russia to play basketball, or maybe she was just hanging out. I don't know what the hell she was doing in Russia, but she
was flying there to play basketball or do some kind of sports thing.
But she took some pot with her, which was ill-advised. I would suggest if you're traveling.
She did say that she didn't know it was in there. I mean, that's just what she said.
I mean, it could have been, and that could be true. It could have been an honest accident. But if I'm going to Russia,
right,
I'm probably double-checking my bags to make sure I don't have any weapons or drugs in there.
It was multiple cartridges, too. It wasn't just you had marijuana on the bottom of your foot, which has happened to people. They've gotten in trouble for that in Saudi Arabia.
Now, I mean, obviously, the woman should have the right to consume whatever she wants to consume. But I would suggest that if you're going to some countries like Russia,
Saudi Arabia,
North Korea, China, you may want to make extra care that you're not carrying anything prohibited into those places where there are literal authoritarian police states that will throw you in prison and disappear you.
Doesn't mean she deserves to get a 9-year sentence that she
not.
got. Which I didn't think you thought that either, but...
Yeah, it's certainly not of a pot. I mean, that's the absurdity.
It's ridiculous, yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, we look at that in the West. If I was Putin, I would be playing this up. But for some reason, they're not. I would, United States, you have plenty of people who are in prison for longer sentences than 9 years for having pot. So, pot meet kettle in this particular story. So, the United States they want to have Brittany Griner released, obviously, but that's because they're viewing her as a political prisoner. But the reality is that there are countless people in federal facilities right now who are in prison basically for marijuana.
Yeah.
And that's not changing anytime soon. So what's the update on Brittany Griner?
WNBA star Brittany Griner has been moved to a Russian forced labor camp months after the basketball player was arrested in Russia for allegedly possessing cannabis oil. The development is the latest update after Griner's appeal of her 9-year sentence was denied by a Russian court last month.
Well, I hope she wasn't expecting to have any semblance of justice in Russia. I mean, Russia as a state isn't any worse than the United States, right? They're all evil. However, you're an American citizen going to Russia when Russia and the United States are pretty much enemies at this point. I would not have even gone there.
Yeah, I personally would have gone there.
I'd like, now's not a good time for me to go do this sporting event in Russia. I'm going to pass on this one.
But apparently people act like going to sporting events is like as important as breathing air, because there was that one guy that was just had to go to Australia during all the COVID lockdowns, and I'm pretty sure he ended up winning that because he wasn't vaccinated, but he wanted to go play in Wimbledon or whatever the heck it is, some tennis thing.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what happened with that. I do remember the story you're talking about, though. And I mean, some people do. It is that serious to some people, but I don't think it's worth, risking a 9-year prison sentence.
Yeah, of course not. But I mean, and I kind of get it because it is her job. So if she's going over there to professionally play basketball,
that's true.
There's not much you can do. I mean, she would literally have to quit the team.
Yeah, that's a bad situation to be in. You're absolutely right. There's more about this coming up. And again, congratulations to Alabama, Tennessee, and Vermont for outlawing slavery. And shame on you, Louisiana, for voting to keep slavery. What the hell is wrong with you people? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up here, including a nurse who cut off someone's foot. It's Free Talk Live.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Nobody loves their cable company except for internet access. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. To find what you want to watch, rather than the several hundred channels your cable or satellite menu force feeds you, explore cordcuttersnews.com. It's a buyer's guide for spending less or spending nothing on television. Founder Luke Bouma told me that for the vast majority of Americans, everything they want to watch is available streaming. The only reason many still subscribe to cable or satellite is live sports, and many team channels now offer streaming. Some cord cutters do end up paying cable-sized money, but what they end up with is 100% their menu. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, where you are invited to take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And again, shame on Louisiana for voting to keep slavery. However, good news coming out of Alabama, Tennessee, and Vermont, actually, all voted to strike the allowance of slavery as punishment for a crime, which, for those who haven't been keeping score, is totally legal in the United States. As long as you're punishing for someone for a crime, and then, you just make more things crimes if you want more slaves, and that's just sort of what we ended up with as a society, where the United States now has the largest prison population in the world. A lot of that has to do with the fact that slavery is still legal in the United States as punishment for a crime. These two things are related.
I mean, cops were first slave catchers.
That's right. Were there not some sort of... Yeah, there were peace officers and stuff like that, like sheriffs and things like that. But I don't know about the history of policing in the United States, but I do know about the history of slavery to an extent, and how it just sort of... It wasn't outlawed. It was just it was moved over to being punishment for a crime. And then they started making everything under the sun illegal so that they could make more people criminals, in other words, slaves, and throw them in prison. And now we have the world's largest prison population. That's right. We're talking about Brittany Griner here in Russia. The United States prison population exceeds Russia's. It exceeds China's. Well, China's may not be true if you count like the Uyghur Muslims. We don't really know what's going on in the Xinjiang province there. If you include those, that China probably has a higher prison population, but they're not acknowledging that.
And it's like, oh, well, we're second to China.
Yeah. Also, right. Like, well, plus, realistically, China turned all of Shanghai into a prison, and that was like, what, 30 million people? I don't remember the population of Shanghai, but they essentially turned it into a prison where people couldn't leave their homes as they wanted. So
America did that too, so never forget.
America never welded anyone into their homes.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, the U.S. sucks. But the stuff that the Chinese government has done, I can't even... There's no comparison.
I mean, at least people in the U.S. could go to the pharmacy and get... I mean, even in Australia, people could still get their medications, from what I knew.
There was a girl in Atlanta early on in the pandemic when lockdowns first started happening who went to jail because she went to go buy tampons. They were like, what are you doing? Going to buy tampons? They arrested her because there was a curfew.
Jesus, but that's definitely essential.
Yeah.
And if there's a curfew, then why would the store be open?
Because it's only open for like people who were working. I don't know.
I can't even believe
she's just walking to her car or something.
Yeah, that's just nuts. I can't even believe that was real, that could actually be an arrestable offense.
Well, very little of what happened during COVID was rational.
They'll arrest people all the time. It doesn't matter they'll just drop it if it's not like able to be brought to court.
Yeah,
that's not defensible.
And there's no punishment for the police when they do this. And if they, successfully do it, they do successfully convict you. Well, look at that. They now have a new slave that they can force to work.
It's literally, if she is sunk, then she's a witch. if she sunk, then she wasn't a witch, and if she didn't sink, then she's a witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's dead in either event. So what good did any of it do? And that's pretty much American society as a whole. And I hate it for Brittany Griner because I can only imagine how bad these circumstances in the Russian labor camps are. I've seen some of these documentaries. I like watching them, like World's Prisons, and some of them are better than others, but how much do prisons around the world suck? Some of them are really bad, but occasionally they talk about these ones in Siberia and stuff like that, where it's like, oh my God, how can any human being survive out there?
Even like now?
I don't know about now. Yeah, I'd have to watch the documentaries again in order to figure out whether or not I was watching one that was talking about the 60s or the 2010s. I don't remember that well. I just know that there were prisons in Siberia where people disappeared to, and it's just amazing that anyone ever survived out there in Siberia.
And I wasn't going to finish the article here because it was just like one more relevant sentence, but it said she will be facing harsh conditions in this forced labor camp, and it might be difficult for her family to even contact her.
But that's true in the United States as well. And you know, I don't want to minimize her suffering because I'm sure it probably does suck a bit more in Russia, in a Russian prison camp, than it does in the United States.
Especially
However,
like as an American.
Yeah, but the language here is so loaded, right? She's being sent to a hard labor camp. In America, we just call those state prisons.
Yep.
But it's the same damn thing. Or we call them federal prisons. I don't know about federal prisons. They're probably better than the state prisons. But in a lot of state prisons, the conditions are absolutely terrifying. Like Parchment in Mississippi, that's the state prison in Mississippi. It's basically in the middle of a field with no forest around it, and it's 95 degrees there in the winter. It's absolutely miserable.
Ew.
And but that's their state prison. And of course, there's plenty of forced labor there. They're just using divisive, inflammatory language to make Russia sound somehow worse than the United States. But we could easily point to Parchment in Mississippi and go, "Hey, look, that's a forced labor camp," and it is.
There was that guy in Arizona who was a
Joe Arpaio.
Yeah, I think so. And he let a lady who just got in jail for drugs and she was going through withdrawals die in a cage outside.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds like Joe Arpaio.
Yeah, it was him, I think.
He did some horrible stuff out there in Arizona. I don't remember the county that he was in charge of, but he managed the prison there.
Still supported by Trump.
Yes, and he was forcing the inmates to wear panties, the male inmates to wear panties, and some other stuff where they didn't have air conditioning. They lived in lean-tos. He was completely sick.
I mean, how messed up in the brain.
On immigrants.
And I was going to say, he was actually giving his cops instruction to specifically target like Hispanic people.
Yeah, he was absolutely despicable human being, but, MAGA, right? Wear that red cap. Trump supported Joe Arpaio. And
he got in trouble, and then so he got in trouble for these horrible human rights violations, but then Trump pardoned him.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a pardon, I don't know if that's the right word, but he did something like that.
I wouldn't be at all surprised, but even if pardoned or not, you had plenty of people on the right who were cheering for Joe Arpaio, saying, yes,
Well, they hate criminals, right? They don't care if people in jail are being tortured, and they especially don't care if they're Mexican or any sort of Hispanic.
Or illegally crossed the border.
People, a lot of these people that are supporting the criminal justice system, they love that this is happening to people. They're just as sick in the brain as the guy you guys were just talking about.
Absolutely.
You're entirely correct, and it's sad. But these people, they do live in that world where they think that criminal means evil. Criminal means bad person. They miss that civics lesson where, pretty much everything in the United States is a crime. The average American, I still haven't read the book, but commits 3 felonies a day, as I understand it. The only thing keeping you out of prison, a federal prison, is the fact that the federal government just can't prosecute everyone. But you better believe it. If we had enough cops out there to pull over everyone speeding, everyone who was driving with a busted taillight or an expired registration sticker or whatever, and then couldn't pay those fines, you would eventually end up in jail just like any of these people. And the crimes that these people committed out there in Arizona, by and large, were just... I don't think they were convicted of coming to America illegally. I think that was Customs and Border Patrol that was dealing with that. And what Joe Arpaio ended up dealing with were like Hispanics who were in America, perhaps legally or illegally, who committed some other crime, like they stole, something from CVS or whatever, and Joe Arpaio would disappear them into the prison for 5 years because he was a despicable, immoral monster. But people didn't care because, as Nikki pointed out, a lot of them were just masking their racism with, we need people who are here legally, not the illegal ones. What the easiest scenario to have to fix this would be to make all immigration legal. If you want to come here, just come here. But they don't want that.
Oh, we can't do that. There'd be way too many Mexicans stealing our jobs.
But they would never have they'd never have the courage to say that. They always put up some sort of obfuscating argument to allow themselves not to have to say, I thought then there'd be too many Mexicans here. Because that's obviously racist. And their entire worldview is that they have to be racist without admitting to being racist. And I would rather them just be openly racist.
Right.
At least then I know where they actually stand, and they're not lying to themselves. They're not lying to me. And, I want to know why the voters of Louisiana voted to maintain slavery. However, I'm shocked to see that Alabama and Tennessee didn't. That's good news for them, and I'm pleased. I want to see something similar happening in New Hampshire. I hadn't really thought about it prior to tonight, but I'm certain we can get state reps to get behind us.
It wasn't something I thought that would get fixed unless the 13th Amendment got amended.
Well, I guess a state constitution could easily amend. Does New Hampshire even need one of these? I've never thought about it. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold back. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing.
President Biden responding to questions at the White House after describing the midterm elections as an historic success for the Democrats, their best performance in government for decades. The fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance, though the president appeared to concede the Republicans will win a majority in the House of Representatives, and said he's beginning talks with Kevin McCarthy, the Republican who may become the next speaker. The race for the Senate is uncertain. Georgia is going to a runoff election on December the 6th. President Biden was asked if he's more likely now to run for a second term in office.
The fact that the Democratic Party outperformed anything anyone expected and did better than any off-year presidency since John Kennedy, is one that gives everybody like, whew, sigh of relief. When I announce, my intention is that I run again, but I'm a great respecter of fate, and this is ultimately a family decision. I think everybody wants me to run, but we're going to have discussions about it.
In other news, British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. From FSN's London bureau, Julia Chapman reports.
Sales for M&S were in fact up 8.8% in the 6 months to October, but profits were hit hard when the company pulled out of Russia, absorbed cost rises amid soaring inflation, and saw a drop in online food sales. In its results, the firm warned of a gathering storm next year and even more challenging market conditions in 2024. It pointed to a confluence of rising business costs and constrained household budgets. M&S chairman Archie Norman says he can't remember a time when macroeconomic factors have had a bigger impact on the business.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it is vital for journalists in Britain to be allowed to do their jobs without interference. He was speaking after a radio reporter and other journalists were arrested by police as they attempted to cover protests by environmental activists earlier this week. Russia is withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River in a bid to resolve supply problems. Ukrainian military commanders say they do not necessarily believe the announcement and are proceeding with caution lest the Russians are laying a military trap. Facebook's parent company Meta is laying off more than 11,000 people, 13% of its workforce. The company is citing worsening macroeconomic trends. Its stock has fallen more than 70% this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more depth today at news that a deal is close between the UK and France over migration flows across the English Channel. It's been a bone of contention ever since the UK departed the European Union, but now the stage seems clear for progress and a deal that could see greater cooperation between London and Paris in a bid to reduce the numbers of people taking to dinghies and making the hazardous journey across the waterway to the UK. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and President Emmanuel Macron discussed the issue on the sidelines of COP27 in Egypt this week, and Sir Peter Westmacott, a former UK ambassador to France, says they seem to have struck a positive working relationship.
There's obviously good atmospherics between Rishi Sunak and President Macron, so I'm sort of optimistic. The thing I would just say is that it does build on a lot of cooperation over the years. People have been a bit rude about French efforts and could they do more. But, we've had almost 1,000 British civil servants working on French territory, doing passport control and immigration control for 25 years. So for a long time, they've, if you like, helped us do our immigration controls on French territory before people who are not got legal right to come to the UK reach our shores. So this is building on that.
He says he hopes Britain can adopt a more mature approach generally to France and worries some politicians in the UK believe that adopting an anti-French tone can yield benefits with voters. The main news again, the fate of Congress continues to hang in the balance as counting continues in America's midterm elections. The British retailer Marks & Spencer is warning of a gathering economic storm after reporting a nearly 24% fall in profits. Russia says it's withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, saying it's pulling back across the Dnipro River. And Facebook's parent company Meta has announced it's laying off more than 11,000 employees.
A new medical study on the effects of marijuana use confirms that everyone knows you're high and that you'll never stop feeling like this.
Everyone can smell the marijuana on your breath and on your clothes. Everyone is laughing at you.
Additionally, the in-depth report reveals that despite trying to act cool, you're definitely laughing too much and everyone is messing with you.
Your parents know you're high, your friends know you're high, strangers on the street know you're high. If you're young and you smoke marijuana, you will probably never be able to find a job. And if you're an adult, you will most likely be fired. If you hear a noise, that's probably the police, and you're probably going to jail.
While previous studies suggested that it's all good and that we're all made of the same stuff that makes stars, new research indicates that your brain got broken and you shouldn't have done this. Doctors say the study raises important questions such as, what if that wasn't just marijuana and how are you going to get home?
is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. There's so much more to say about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and the overall, I don't want to call it a collapse. Bitcoin's not dead. Bitcoin will be just fine in the long run, but I'm not going to lie, even though I'm not able to use cryptocurrency, it is painful to hear about the collapse in the value of cryptocurrency that's happened in the last several days.
I don't know. I sincerely still just see it as it's on sale. I'm never going to sell, so it doesn't affect me.
And that's where I would feel if I could, in fact, buy more Bitcoin, because it is on sale. It's on sale for like $15,000, but by now it may be $14,000. I don't know. And I did recently ask my attorney if we can make this happen. I just want to be able to buy the stuff, right? Because the U.S. government is destroying the USD. I'm already buying gold and silver as fast as I can and buying stocks. I'm investing in 401ks. I'm like, look, attorney, I'm doing all of these things. Can I also just do the other thing that is a little bit better of investment than all of these others? And all of that's in motion. Hopefully, I don't know. I haven't really dealt with that. However, that's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to look at it and say, well, Bitcoin's just on sale. I'll just buy more of it because it's $15,000 now.
It's 16 though. I just checked. So at least it's not going down anymore.
Right? Well, tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
I suspect this bloodbath is going to continue as bad news continues coming out of the crypto space, because the more it goes down, the more some of these over-leveraged companies are going to reveal that they're over-leveraged. Like Crypto.com was one of them. They were very prominent. They were advertising during the Super Bowl. However, they're also broke now, and they're laying people off, and it's largely because the value of Bitcoin was on the way up. So they hired all of these people, and they were going to use the Bitcoin for all of these great things. But that was like,
they spent $1 million or something on an advertisement.
Yeah, well, they also did that, which was probably not a good idea. But then Bitcoin lost, 75, 80% of its value. And they're like, oh, we need to suddenly fire 75 to 80% of our staff because we were relying on that Bitcoin to pay them. And now that Bitcoin's not worth as much.
Oh, and I bet Bitcoin City is not doing very well.
Probably not. That's the one in
El
Salvador. So there's a lot of reasons to be interested in cryptocurrency right now. It's a fascinating topic. It's a fascinating field. And I wish I could just say, yeah, it's on sale. But to me, I can't do that. I'm just looking at whatever cryptocurrency I think may still exist somewhere out there belonging to me. And I'm just like, oh, that's worth less now. But, time will tell. Maybe one day I can buy cryptocurrency again. At the moment, the federal government has prohibited me from doing so. And I'm looking at it like, man, it's on sale. Can I buy it? That is a good way of looking at it. But let's go to the phones. We have Steve on the line from here in New Hampshire. Steve, you are on Free Talk Live.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'll try to keep it brief. But yeah, I think it was last night you and Ian and I think Conan were talking about that guy Nicholas Sarwark. I didn't know much about him until yesterday. I took yesterday off and tried to do the right thing and do a lot of research on the candidates. And before I made my decision, and unfortunately, I did vote for him. I didn't know as much as I could have. But anyway, I found it interesting that you guys were saying that he was sponsoring the was it Kelly Halldorson, I believe, for governor.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. One of the reasons I actually voted for Carolyn over the gal Kelly is the gal Kelly. She was on NHPR and she used the phrase unironically. She used the phrase alt-right. She said she was concerned about an alt-right presence in the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about like the Nick Sarwark types is like I don't like the alt-right either. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm pro alt-right. It's just like stupid stuff like that. So outdated, so stupid.
It's a bad way of phrasing it, certainly, but we can't pretend like there's not a libertarian to alt-right pipeline, because there very much is. Like, look at Christopher.
I think it's just regular right that I have a problem with. I don't like the fact that libertarians are not right-wing.
Christopher Cantwell used to be a libertarian. He sat in this very studio, right? But he rode that pipeline right into the alt-right, as many others have done. And
I'm not saying that there's not one. It's just that it's not a thing anymore. The alt-right is like a thing that is gone now. And people still talking about that.
Outdated.
It's like she's obviously trying to get like Democratic votes like that, and it's just like cringe. But I wouldn't say that you did anything wrong by voting for Nick Sarwark, because I would vote for Nick Sarwark over most of the other candidates, if that makes sense.
And to be fair, what this woman, when she talked about the alt-right among libertarians in New Hampshire, she almost certainly meant the Mises Caucus libertarians, and that's just such overblown nonsense that it just makes my eyes roll to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's kind of what's leading to my question. I don't always keep up on everything going on in the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire, but I know about a year ago, it was back June or so, I think of 2021, there was a coup of sorts. There was with the gal, the head of the Libertarian Party was like registered of like a new Libertarian Party and took over the social media accounts. And anyway, I know there was a lot of history there.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what was going on with that, but they wouldn't give up the keys to the Twitter page to the new...
It was Jackie Perry.
Was it?
I think so. I honestly didn't follow that at all, but I'm pretty sure it was Jackie Perry.
I would not be surprised to find that is true, because I recently told someone that Nick Sarwark is just the new Jackie Perry. He's the new Fed that was sent here to cause division in the community because Jackie Perry could no longer effectively do it. Too many people were wise to her tricks.
What else is the actual objective in running as just a different libertarian? Like, you didn't achieve anything at all. If you just ran as Republicans or Democrats, then you probably could have won, but not as some new libertarian. And all it did was split the vote.
That's all it could ever have done, by definition, was split the vote, the libertarian vote.
It's not the same argument as people say to Republicans, because you're supposed to be on, if you're actually a libertarian, you're supposed to, you're not supposed to want to vote for that guy, but you shouldn't be like, I am against Jeremy Kauffman's campaign.
And I'm certainly not saying, party first or any of this nonsense. I don't care. Vote for individuals, not parties. I'm not saying put the Libertarian Party over your personal positions. I'm saying have some perspective, because the reality was that neither Carlin nor this other person were ever going anywhere near the governor's mansion.
Yeah.
They're never going to be elected. So it's not like you have to really, because, I can't elect this person because then the Democrats will win, or this libertarian is not good enough. What would they do if they had the keys to power? They're never going to.
It would be pretty funny if Carlin was governor. More entertaining than Trump as president on Twitter.
It would be entertaining, but realistically, she was never going to win.
Right.
So it's not like anything would have been lost to just not run another candidate. And I hate that this whole thing happened. I used to like Nick Sarwark. I don't know what happened to him after he left the National Libertarian Party, but he came to New Hampshire and he just immediately started sowing division among libertarians here. Like, dude, that's not what we do here in New Hampshire. That divisiveness crap, you take that to Washington with Jackie and the others, or leave it there in Arizona, where you had your little convention.
I just don't understand why he would stay here. Like, at the convention in January, he and his little table, like his wife and whoever else he was with, it was like 4 people total, they were voting against everything. Everyone else in the entire room, like 200 people, were voting, and then they stormed out of the room. It was so weird. It's just like...
The one that was weirdest to me and where I lost all respect for him was the video of where he chest checked someone or he shoulder bumped them.
Blamed it on the other person.
And then started screaming and yelling and causing a
like
scene.
Like a baby.
Yeah, and like this person recorded illegal video of it, and this other's like, well, first of all, you're...
No, you got
He's just mad because he got caught.
Yeah, you got caught doing something grimy. You're shady. That's exactly what was going on there.
And that says a lot about somebody's character. It's the same thing with Don Bolduc. It really does have something to say about whether or not you should vote for this person. He's a lying scumbag.
I don't know if I would go that far about Nick Sarwark, but you're right. Don Bolduc's little claiming to be hit by Joa thing was exactly the same as Nick Sarwark claiming this other guy ran into him. I mean, there's literal video of how it actually went down. And it saddens me because I don't want libertarians here in New Hampshire to fight amongst one another. I want us to work together. And I think that in the end, we will win out over these people who are trying to cause division, and that unity among libertarians and free staters will ultimately be what people care about. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves. You can talk about whatever's important to you, or you can join us in our discussion, what we've been talking about. Coming up next year, Fork Fest number 6, I believe. It may be number 7. I am not 100% sure off the top of my head. It's happening June the 15th through the 18th. It's the 7th annual Fork Fest, returning to where it all began. Going back to the beginning of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Of course, the Porcupine Freedom Festival is expected to sell out, as it has done for the last 2 years. And I don't see any reason why year number 3 would be different. Or I think it's the 20th year of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, so it's not year number 3. But anyway, Fork Fest is not going to sell out because we don't have tickets to sell. All you have to do is go to Fork Fest. Well, you can't book anything at forkfest.party. Sorry. All you have to do is contact Rogers Campground and reserve your RV site, your camping site, or your motel room for June the 15th through the 18th, and that gets you in. That's it. You just have to be there when Fork Fest happens, and you're part of Fork Fest. You can hang out with other Fork Festers online. Find them at forkfest.party. That's the unofficial website. June the 15th through the 18th. Again, that's forkfest.party. Let's go to the phones. We have Sarah on the line from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, what I was told for the Mormons was that the people that settled the Americas, the South Americas, were actually from the Egypt area, and then they took the boats, and then the currents carried them into South America, and they went up to the Panama Canal, and they settled like parts of Mexico, and so but I do believe that.
You do or you don't believe that?
I do believe that.
Sarah, first of all, it's that they think they're Israelis. They think that they're Israelites. That's
right,
what I've heard.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, the Native American. And I'm going just off what South Park taught me here, but okay. They're Israelites. They're the tribes of Israel.
The thing is, there is no archaeological evidence to prove that at all.
And the Panama Canal certainly was not here back then. So, but I think that's just something Sarah got wrong.
They did remember, they had the sundials and the pyramids that were very much like the Egyptians, and they found.
So they had those in Asia too.
There's also pyramids in China. Yeah. And all around the world, because it turns out when you want to stack rocks together on top of a monument, the best way to do that is like to make a pyramid out of them.
There's all kinds of symbolism.
I realize this may surprise you, but if you think back to your childhood when you have 10 things you wanted to stack up, that's just the most obvious way to stack them and make sure they wouldn't fall.
I don't know. I think you're both wrong. I think that the aliens built the pyramids.
I had a professor when I was in college who legitimately believed that the way they were constructed was by using their voices and singing to elevate the stones to where they needed to be.
That's kind of crazy that he would talk about that, because I've heard that theory. It's interesting because they believe that, I don't know if it was singing, but there was some kind of sound. I'm not saying I believe it. It's just really interesting. But people believe that you can use some kind of sound wave to rearrange the molecules in rock to where they can be moldable, and it would kind of make sense with some of the things that are built in South America, where we don't even have the technology today to get rocks like they're built in these walls and stuff to where a human hair can't even go in between them. They're so perfectly fitted together. It's like they were moldable and they dried that way, but they're the type of rock that doesn't do that.
Well, music is definitely
pictures of the levitation rods and the Egyptian hieroglyphic pictures. They were able to levitate objects at that time. About 5
This is the least crazy thing Sarah's ever came on here saying she believed, because I would believe it.
I mean, music is definitely weird. The ancient Greeks believed that the interval that is the fifth, which is what most music is based around, whether people really listen to it or not, it has healing properties, and that the flatted fifth had the opposite property of causing people discord and disharmony. And this goes all the way back to Pythagoras and others who believed along those lines. We don't really know. There is some weird stuff going on here in the universe, and the pyramids, for better or worse, are one of the best examples of that. Like the Great Pyramid in Giza is far more complex than most people realize, because it's an 8-sided pyramid and not a 4-sided pyramid. And you can only tell that at one time of year, or 2 times a year rather, during it's either the equinox or the solstice when the shadows of the pyramids or the shadows of the angles are cut in exactly the right way for you to see that there's actually 8 sides rather than 4. Otherwise, the angles are so slight that you can't tell. But on these 2 intervals throughout the year, yes, it's 8
Why
sides.
I have never
what
heard
date
of
is.
this. That's crazy.
Not to mention the fact that the Great Pyramid is magnetically aligned to the North Pole to like a 500th of a degree, and the White House is only like a 25th of that.
And there's all kinds of things.
So, and magnets, they weren't even invented then.
There's all kinds of things with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx together that perfectly align with like the stars and constellations. Like, oh, this day they're perfectly aligned this way, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be able to recite it, but really interesting. Like somebody would have to be perfect with their math, perfect with the tools to be able to look at the sky and everything, but
yeah, there's no way that was accident or just coincidence. There is absolutely no way.
And the argument is put forward is that people did this. Tens of thousands of people did this using only chisels and hammers. And I'm not saying
add up.
I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I'm saying when I look at this and I factor in all of these things like how magnets weren't even invented then, and it's aligned with magnetic north, and it's an 8-sided pyramid and not a 4-sided pyramid, and it's in the exact right spot to be shown to be 8-sided during the equinox. Or solstice, I don't remember which. I mean, when you factor in all of those things, it seems very unlikely that anyone did this using chisels and hammers.
Because the one thing is that I always think about with all these cultures, not just ancient Egypt, like all of the art and stuff like that seems like, oh, it has no real meaning, but it took lots of effort. These people were, you're telling me that these people were working day and night just to survive, and they sat around doing this art just for no reason as well? Like, it must have served some kind of a purpose, like made energy or something like that.
Or it was religious. I think that's probably one of the better explanations that I've heard for a lot of this.
It doesn't make sense, though, because like people would not be like, I'm not going to eat today, I'm going to build the pyramid. Like, I really don't think thousands of people would do that.
And we can't really know what Egyptologists really say or what actually happened, but the going theory among Egyptologists today is that they were actually paid. They found receipts or something like that from the building of the Great Pyramids.
But it's not just Egypt. Like that was a rich country. There was all kinds of like, oh, these were dirt poor people just living in Mexico, and they built a pyramid too. And they also sat around carving these intricate little dolls that, you know, or like sculptures and stuff like that just to pray to them, you know, like, I'm not going to eat today. I'm not going to make my tortillas. I'm going to, you know, carve this thing that I'm imagining that I'm going to pray to.
Well, to a lot of them, the sun was God, so it wasn't some distant entity to them. They didn't understand how it worked. It was just this great, big, glowing orb in the sky, and it provided them life and warmth and all of the things that they needed in order to survive. So they praised it, and some of them dedicated their lives to it. But that doesn't explain all of them, like the dolls and stuff like that. I don't know. I just know there's some weird stuff going on, and it's fascinating, and a lot of it's just not that well known. 603-283-6160 if you want to join us. There's more coming up in the crypto bloodbath. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. President Biden says U.S. Democrats are breathing a sigh of relief after not suffering massive losses in America's midterm elections. But the race for the House of Representatives and the Senate remain evenly poised, despite the Republicans' failure to mobilize the tidal wave of voter support they were promising. From Washington, Simon Marks reports.
The president took a victory lap at the White House, even though there is no victory yet to celebrate. He seemed to concede the House of Representatives will fall into Republican hands, and even though the Senate is still up for grabs, insisted the Republicans' failure to deliver on the red wave of support that they'd promised was good for the country.
The fact that the Democratic Party outperformed anything anyone expected is one that gives everybody like, whew, sigh of relief.
Asked what he would do differently to assuage the concerns of voters, he said nothing, saying the public is only just realizing how much he's accomplished. He said his intention remains to seek another term in office, but that would be a family decision, he said, that has not yet been made.
Georgia's hotly contested Senate race is headed into overtime. Neither incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock nor Republican hopeful Herschel Walker secured a majority of votes, forcing a runoff next month. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
To win in Georgia, a candidate needs to secure at least 50% of the vote. And with almost all ballots tallied, the Secretary of State said that's unlikely to happen. Warnock and Walker's direct path to victory has been complicated by Libertarian candidate Chase Oliver, who has garnered more than 2% of the vote. Warnock and Walker will square off on December 6th, leaving one of the most closely watched races of the midterms and perhaps the deciding factor on which party controls the U.S. Senate unresolved for weeks. Tony Waterman, Texas.
U.S. stocks lost ground Wednesday, fueled by uncertainty over who will win control of Congress when the results of the midterms are finally calculated. And traders are anxiously awaiting the release of key inflation data due out on Thursday. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Wall Street's three-day hot streak has come to an end, with investors anxious about which party will control Congress and the legislative agenda. The Dow closed the day down 2%, the S&P 2.1%, and the Nasdaq 2.5%. Disney shares plunged 13%, following a disappointing earnings report. And while much focus for investors has been on the midterms, attention is also turning to the release of consumer price index figures due out Thursday. It's a key inflation gauge, and traders will be eager to see whether the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes are starting to ease price pressures.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. It's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And did you know we have our own social media server? A lot of people are, I saw someone complaining on Facebook today. Well, they weren't really complaining, but what they kind of were. About, how they were leaving Twitter and they were looking at alternatives, and they didn't think Mastodon was for them because then you're only on this one server, and they didn't seem to understand that, yes, you have your account on this one server, but you can still interact with all of these other accounts on these other servers as well. It functions much more like how email used to. Yes, you have to go to yahoo.com to access your email address, but you can still email someone who uses Gmail or Hotmail. You can still interact with those people.
Well, but mine is in all lowercase.
Right. Okay. So they don't understand how Mastodon works. And we do have our own Mastodon server. You can find it at social.freetalklive.com. And you can interact with people on other servers. You can like their posts. You can follow them. You can favorite them. You can boost their posts, which is what they call when you share or retweet, basically. So it's not as regimented and strict as it sounds, right? You think, oh, well, I don't want to sit there and just chat with only people who listen to Free Talk Live. It's not the way it works. Social.freetalklive.com if you want to check it out. That's our server. That's social.freetalklive.com. We are actually free speech absolutists at Free Talk Live, though. So if you come there expecting to be able to control what other people say, you're going to have a bad time.
I had a really good time convincing just this girl I went to high school and middle school with of being a free speech absolutist. She texted me on Twitter and she was like, I have a question. are you a Republican? And I just was like, no, I'm an anarchist. I only vote Libertarian in New Hampshire because anarchists run, and I can vote for people to go into the government and get rid of it. And she was just like, oh, okay, oh, you probably think I'm stupid. And I was like, no, you're not stupid. It makes sense because I also attack the Democrat, or, criticize the Democrats. Right. And I basically explained it all to her, and she was like, yeah, you know what, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I told her, I was like, the thing is, like, I'm pro, for example, LGBT rights, but I'm not going to want somebody to be punished for talking bad about them, because just for one thing out of many things, I want to know who's, just a bigot for no reason. I want to know. So they should be allowed to say it, so that way I'm allowed to. And she was like, that makes total sense. And I thought that was cool.
Speaking of bigots, we have Bad Slave on the line from here in New Hampshire. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
What's on your mind tonight?
I was just going to say that one of the things that I was pretty disappointed in Mr. Trump was his pardon of Joe Arpaio. Joe Arpaio was the, just one of the worst
swine
people in law enforcement.
Yeah, he was certainly evil.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was, and I have an ex-uncle. He's only like a year older than me, but my
ex-uncle.
That's what I heard.
How does it? Is that right? Did we hear correctly?
Well, he was married to my aunt.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And now no longer is. Anyways, and she was only a year older than me as well. So, my mom was the first of 8.
What was it about this uncle?
So this uncle, he lived in Mesa, Arizona, which is nearby Phoenix, and that's where Maricopa County is, by the way, and Trump pardoned a jerk off, but I think that was more, his idea that that cops are all good and stuff like that. And
that's a horrible idea.
I don't know why Trump pardoned Joe Arpaio, other than he wanted brownie points with the racists among the Republicans who wanted exactly that.
Yeah, that's more of the thing that people should point to when they say that Trump is racist, because most of the stuff they say about him isn't very persuasive that he's racist. I mean, I'd believe it, but the thing they should point to
any more racist than anyone else. I
think they should point to him pardoning Joe Arpaio, however you say it.
Arpaio was actually, he's a cop, okay? That's why he got pardoned. It doesn't have anything to do with, race or anything like that, although...
No, I'm saying he was racist. Arpaio, whatever he is.
Arpaio, yeah, he was absolutely racist.
Yeah, he's confirmed.
Well, I'm not going to argue that at all. I actually don't think Trump is generally racist, but that's another story.
I don't really care if he is. I was just saying that that's a more convincing point from those people than, he said bad hombre or whatever.
I think that Trump probably looks down on everyone to roughly the same degrees, and that he probably isn't racist against black people or Hispanics any more so than he is against anyone. I think that Trump just probably considers most people of every ethnicity to be beneath him. That's what my gut tells me about Donald Trump.
Yeah, just like most politicians.
That's not surprising. But anyways,
what's not surprising?
My main point is that that basically the reason that the cops are as bad as they are is that they get to enforce a crapload of laws that don't deserve to exist.
Well, they're trained to be bad cops, and that's one of the things. There's a wonderful article written by someone who was using the acronym of ACAB. I don't remember exactly what the person was pretending their name was in order to have those initials, but it was a wonderful article about a former cop who went into extensive detail about all of the ways that he had been trained to other people who were not cops, to look down on them, to treat them like they were scum, to constantly jump at shadows, to shoot first, ask questions later. They're trained to do these sorts of things. It's not that they're being forced to impose bad laws. They're being taught how to violate people's rights. The entire institution, that's how they get promotions. And if you stand against those things, you get quietly fired. So the whole system is corrupt, and it's not just a matter of a few bad laws or anything like that. It's the system itself.
It's not like, oh, I have to enforce this law. Like the other day, I watched this video of a cop, I think in Texas, a lady. She was like, "What's in your back pocket, sir?" And he's like, "A navigational instrument. What are you, a tyrant?" And she's like, "Yeah, I actually am." "And what is that in your pocket?" And it was a cane, a walking stick. And he showed it to her, and she arrested him anyway for not showing ID. He was like, "Why? I don't have to show you my ID. I'm not breaking any law." She's like, "Yeah, but you were suspected of breaking law." And he's like, "Yeah, and now you know it's my walking stick, and you know it's my cane." She just gets her other officer over there, and they arrested him for not showing ID, for not doing anything. She didn't have to.
No, that's too often how it goes, too. I mean, first of all, never answer the questions the police ask you. In some states, you do have to produce identification, even if you're just walking, or you do have to identify yourself. And usually they'll say something like, "Oh, well, I'm investigating a crime, and that's why I need you to ID." Okay, well, what is your reasonable suspicion? You need to articulate your reasonable suspicion for thinking that I have committed a crime.
Well, she admitted she was a tyrant.
Well, yes, usually they won't be able to articulate any sort of suspicion. They'll just keep saying, "I'm investigating a crime," and you say, "Well, am I being detained?" And they'll do everything they can to not say you're not being detained or that you're free to go. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, if they don't have the ability to articulate that they think you've committed a crime, they can't detain you, and they do have to let you walk away. In most jurisdictions.
Or they just arrest you, and then later it gets dropped because they weren't allowed to arrest you, and nothing ever happens to them at all, and you wasted a whole day, or they wasted your whole day.
Sadly, those things do happen, and in some of those cases, especially here in New Hampshire, people sue the police who do those things, and the city loses, the police officers themselves, so they are never punished. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on police accountability, because there isn't any. There's more coming up. It is Free Talk Live.
Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you are invited to take control of the airwaves. Unfortunately, I didn't even realize this was the final segment of tonight's show. So if you haven't already called, actually, we have a new method of identifying people. We do have someone on the line right now. Renee from Louisiana is actually waiting on hold. I have no idea what Renee wants to talk about, but Renee's a regular caller, so it'll be fine even without doing the whole screening process. But again, I want to tell you, we don't have just a social media server. We also have our official chat server. You can find it at chat.freetalklive.com. It's a matrix server, which is a Discord version of Mastodon, which none of this is going to make sense to anyone, and I don't even know why I bothered to make that analogy, but it is to Discord what Mastodon is to Twitter, I guess is what I was trying to say. It's a decentralized version, it's a federated version of Discord, where you can create your own chat rooms, you can interact with people however you want to, and if you don't want to interact with them, you can just click that little block button and never have to deal with them again, instead of reporting it to us like a 5-year-old child screaming because someone said something you didn't like. Maybe try the block button. Anyway, you can find that at chat.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones. We have Renee on the line from Louisiana. Renee, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I want to make a comment about police.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, first of all, you get what you pay for. I mean, these guys, some of them might be able to be good. They should have a better selection process like special forces, more schooling, and more training, like real-life training scenarios in schools so they do not make these mistakes, you know. A lot of them make mistakes because they're not properly trained.
I mean, either way, they're going to be agents of the state. You know, enforcing laws that are unethical.
And a fair number of them, want to be unethical. They want to enforce bad laws. They want to impress people's rights.
It's not like people or cops are just going around accidentally doing bad things. The things they do, they're supposed to be doing according to their job.
Can I tell you a few experiences?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I view the police when they're being bad. Some communities, I'm not gonna let you fill it in. They have the attitude. You can't. They have the big boy. How do they call that? Darn, I forgot the word. Like they all knit and all that. The good old boy system, and I dismissed that because my personal experience. I've got in trouble. Somebody stopped me. When you look at the computer, what I did, I didn't mean to do it. I just had help that day, not feeling good. So he went from "How you doing, sir?" to being totally ugly. They were having a surge for some reason, and like extra police. And he showed up in front of the other two policemen who stayed quiet, like he was daring me to do something. Like I don't know, maybe want me to react to shoot me and hurt me and all that. I was sassy, but not over sassy. The next day, I went to a supervisor. I wrote down on a paper. I talked to the guy, told him how much a liability, if I was unstable, liability to me, the community, the other policemen if something happened. So months later, I seen him at an office instead of working the beat, calling me sir, being nice. I don't care. I'm not too forgiving. So my attitude toward police is if you don't make a report, and it has a good old boy system, eventually the top good old boy will be scared that good old boy at the bottom gets him in trouble. It's like Malcolm Little, a.k.a. Malcolm X, said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Because if you don't do nothing about them policemen, you're not going to have quality when they're messing up.
I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. However, the solution to the problem that is, a violent, oppressive police force in the United States isn't, in my opinion, more accountability. It's to abolish the institution entirely. I was like,
it's like if there's something that we need in this life, mandating it is always redundant. And if it's something that's going to be hurting our natural laws, then it's unethical. So if you're going to make it, if you're only going to have just laws, we're just going to make it illegal to murder, that's redundant. People should know not to murder. Like, people know not to murder. They know it's wrong, and the community can punish it in their own way. It's just redundant. There's no reason to have laws, and there's no reason to have police.
It also doesn't make sense for, if we are going to do this system of laws for the entire country, and I know different states have different laws, but it just doesn't make sense for, all of these federal laws, for the entire United States to have to follow these set of rules.
It absolutely doesn't. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Renee. We also have David on the line from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, here's a fun one I haven't told. So I was at the University of New Mexico football stadium watching the football game. First time I'd ever been in that stadium, and I'm standing along a rail, and they have the ushers that work the rail, to crowd control, whatever. And I'm standing by this usher at the rail, and they don't tell me I can't stand by the rail there. And so I wander down to the next and stand by where the next usher's zone is, and she gets all over my ass about that I can't stand there. And I'm like, well, so I was just standing up there by that usher, and they didn't say anything. And then so the cops start coming over because I'm giving this usher lip, giving her talk back, and the cops start surrounding me. And I notice one of the guys is one of these are like young military dudes, they're all in their 20s, and one of the dudes starts pulling on his gloves, and I know why he's pulling on his gloves, because he thinks he's going to have to manhandle me, and he gets one glove about halfway on, and I go, you don't need your gloves, dude. And then and I had figured out what was going down, so I looked at each one of these dudes in the eyes. There was like 4 of them, and I looked at each one in the eye, and I said, is anybody here detaining me? And I went from eye to eye to eye to eye, and then I said, okay, good. Does anybody here have a problem with me going that direction? Silence. And then I said, okay, if you guys need me, I'll be down there in that green grassy area if anybody have any questions for me later. And the point is what it may not work for other people. What works for me is I make it clear to them that I am their commanding officer. I know the game better than you do, chump. And I'm lining my sights up on you for a federal lawsuit from moment one. So keep playing the game because I like it. And then after they get the point, then I make a friend out of them because we're on the same side as far as I'm concerned. Theoretically, we're on the same side. And if they don't figure out that they're on the same side as I'm on, I make them figure it out.
Thank you so much for the call tonight, David. You had me. I agree with a lot of that. It's risky. You have to really know your stuff to be that confrontational with a cop. Not everyone can do it. You have to know exactly what you can say, what you can get away with, what you can't get away with.
And in some instances, like I was having a similar situation, just silly with a bureaucrat yesterday. I just don't think that a bureaucrat reacts the same way to me telling them off, like, no, I know blah, 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 telling them off the same way they react to a man. Like, this man was just like, I'm not having it. I'm not losing to this woman. And I kept telling him, like, I'm not just listening. You're going to have to go get your law book because I'm not just listening to you just because you're a man and you're telling me to do a thing. And he was like, he wasn't happy about it, but he continued until he got the law book out, smirking to bring me, and it didn't even... Anyways, I'd have to tell the whole story.
Yeah, go ahead. So this was about a sign that someone had planted at because yesterday you spent the day holding signs for Matt Santonastasso.
Yeah.
And someone else had planted a Matt Santonastasso sign
before I got there
at the polling facility, but in the public easement.
It was in the public easement. Like, it was like feet away from what would be the polling location, aka the town hall's land, but it was beyond where the like stop signs and stuff were. It was a public easement, and I got him to admit that was public easement.
And the rule in New Hampshire is it's surprisingly close. It's only like 25 feet away from the entrance is where you have to stop campaigning or something like that. You're allowed to get remarkably close to the building, where in some places it's 100 feet or a quarter of a mile or whatever. In New Hampshire, it's only 25 feet.
So the person who was there before me left his Matt Santonastasso sign in the ground. I came, I put 3 more out, and then I was standing there holding my sign, and this bureaucrat comes out of the office, and he's like, yeah, you're going to have to remove your Santonastasso signs. And I was like, why didn't you remove that one before? And he was like, well, I was busy doing other things before you got here. And I was like, all right, well, there were signs at the polling place I just came from in Keene. Also, I had signs that we were supposed to put in the ground for Young Americans for Liberty when I held signs or stood at the polls for Carla Garrick and John Burt in 2020. It's just like, these are all, sorry, I'm not going to be able to get the whole story out.
Sorry about that.
Basically, this man went inside and grabbed a giant book to show me paperwork, and all it said was that it can't be on the polling place's property. And he had just admitted it was public easement, but just to avoid the cops coming, I took him down. I didn't think they were going to make a big difference anyway. I had my sign I could hold.
We're out of time for tonight, but you can join us in the meantime on our social media server. You can find that at social.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by